kudos to Joe for bringing this forward, and kudos to you all for allowing this to happen. So I just wanted to come and say thanks to you all, and we appreciate that.
Thank you,
Any
Commissioner.
questions?
So, Tom, Joe was telling me upstairs that you struck out 3 times with runners in scoring position. And
Listen, the
there-
reason I strike out is I don't have to put that much energy to walk back to the dugout. So yes, he's correct, and I do appreciate that. Thank you all.
Well, thank you for bringing this
Thank you,
forward.
Mr. Chairman, and again, the county staff did an outstanding job.
In these times where we don't have a lot of recreation happening and a lot of functions happening, I think this was a great shot in the arm for our economy, and more importantly, gathering and having a good time. I'm also grateful that all the players showed up, so I know you gave me the ball, but I stood by the phone just so I can volunteer Tommy to pitch, because I didn't know how to, you know. But thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Without any further delay, we now move on to the consent agenda. Commissioners, is there anything on the consent agenda that you wish to pull for further discussion? Hearing none, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to pull an item for further discussion? Seeing none,
Move consent.
Second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Adams, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda, constitutional officers and governmental agencies. We have the Indian River County Sheriff Eric Flowers regarding safety and security for the Indian River County Sheriff's Office complex. Memorandum from the sheriff, and we have the sheriff before us. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Chairman. How are you?
Outstanding. We're doing well.
Good morning, Commission. Thank you so much for making time for us today, and thank you each for taking time to come with me and visit the Indian River County Sheriff's Office back in November, and the county administrator as well. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to do that, and for taking time today. As you know, our building was originally constructed in the early 80s. We have one of the older buildings, and there were some plans in place to do some renovations. We've been talking with the school district since Marjorie Stoneman Douglas about single point entry and how important that is. And we've seen incidents across our country where law enforcement agencies have been attacked at their home base. And so upon taking office, one of my main concerns was the safety and security of our employees. And so I also recognize that post-COVID, the idea of us building a huge building or doing something like that is just not realistic, that it wouldn't be prudent for the taxpayers, and that we need to take a hard look at doing some renovations at our building, at our current complex. And I'm certainly excited about those ideas, and I think we've got a lot of good things we can do. But before we can do any of that, I have to make sure that the employees are safe and secure. And so with your assistance, I would like to change some of the funding that was originally designated for future building plans to go towards safety and security of our complex, and begin that process this year so that we can ensure our employees are safe while they're doing their jobs. Appreciate your time, and I hope we can get there. I know you each visited. You got to see the campus and see some of our concerns and some of the problems. I think each of you got to see folks just wandering through the middle of our campus during those times, during those tours, and you recognize some of the challenges that we have. So it is my goal to make our campus a single point entry and a safe place for our employees to come work on a daily basis, hardening that front lobby and making sure that we've got the protections in place. When it was built in 1986, folks weren't thinking about people driving a vehicle into a front lobby of a law enforcement agency. They weren't thinking about someone coming into the front lobby and shooting. Those were foregone conclusions. They never thought that would ever happen. But we've seen that nationally. We know that's something that we need to prepare for, and so we're ready to start that project with your assistance.
Well, Sheriff, thank you. I know personally I appreciated the opportunity to revisit a location that I had rather close knowledge of from former employment. And it was always a concern about the perimeter. And there were many features that were discussed. And I just well embraced your thought process at this point, looking at what we had earmarked for a grand project from prior years that may or may not have happened, and to look at one of the most significant elements of concern, safety and security for the complex, and knowing that there is funding available, to want that funding earmarked directly for the project as opposed to a vision is to be commended.
Thank you.
Fully supported. I won't be making a motion today since I'm prohibited from making a motion, but I'll wait for that motion, as you will too. I'd like to turn this over to the county administrator to explain the ability for funding to give the commissioners a better understanding.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Had a discussion with the sheriff as he mentioned. Staff is fully supportive of this request. Rather than moving forward on the design for a replacement facility, which we have funds set aside for in the capital improvements program. Our 5-year capital improvements program has over $2 million for that effort, including $750,000 in the current fiscal year. So with direction from the board, we could repurpose those dollars that are in the current budget, that are $750,000, they're law enforcement impact fee dollars. We've talked to our consultant and made sure that we could use the law enforcement impact fees for this type of expense, and they have agreed that that is a proper use of those dollars. So staff would be supportive of that. We could, if the board would just provide direction to repurpose those dollars in the current year budget, and then we can do that in next year's budget as well if there are any ongoing changes that need to be made with those future year amounts. And as we go through the capital improvements process next year in the fall, or this year in the fall, we'll work with the sheriff on how to repurpose those dollars in future years as well.
And once again, and thank you, once again, it appears to be a significant ask, but we're reminded that this was money that was set aside for an envisionment that would likely to be $60+ million for complete renovations, which at this juncture is not necessary and probably would consider to be inappropriate, most certainly. So I'm very excited that you want to move in this direction, Sheriff. Commissioners.
I'm thrilled that you're acting on this. It couldn't be a more important time to do this. And by the way, yesterday for Martin Luther King Day, we were in Gifford, and in Gifford, they're asking for this kind of thing, for greater safety. You may recall, they were shouting out they want a greater presence, they want to feel safe, and they can't feel safe unless the sheriff and his people are safe. I mean, one follows from the other. So thank you so much for bringing this forward, and I'll make a motion at the appropriate time.
Commissioner Adams?
I went out and toured the facility with the Sheriff Flowers, and I think the idea is a wonderful one. I think it's a much better use of the dollars, and it will meet the goals that he has for the department and set a standard for his 10 years. I'm fully in support of it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I too went with Sheriff Flowers at the time, and I'm kind of like you. I've spent a lot of time there on a professional level, in and out, and never really gave it much thought because I was around when they built that building originally, and Sheriff Dobeck moved in it. And but now, when you see any police facility or any law enforcement type facility anywhere in the state or the country, especially new ones and even old ones, are having this done, and I think it's important that we keep the employees safe and give them a sense of security, and we do what's needed. It's sad that in this times that we have to do this, but it's absolutely necessary, and I fully support this.
Mr. Chairman, I fully support it as well, but I think just from a public point of view, to ensure transparency, I think what we should do today is give the county administrator authorization to work with the sheriff to reallocate those dollars and then bring back some type of, and I told you I'd ask for a spreadsheet in honor of Commissioner Slory, so. But just something so we can see where those dollars are gonna go, just so the public knows what we're spending. So I think just today, we give the administrator authorization to work with the sheriff and then come back with an item where we have the budget dollars reallocated so that there's transparency.
Yes, and I'm most certainly fine with that there. I just would like the sheriff to begin moving. I know when we initially talked about it, he didn't go out and set forward what some previous sheriffs may have done was to get quotes and have it all set before it's discussed before the commission. And I believe everything was done in the right way, and that would most certainly be reflective of perfect transparency.
I have no problem bringing before, quotes once we get it together and everything. That's no problem. I don't need to move on this right away. My only concern is the funding, making sure that we spend it at the appropriate time and that timing happens. For me, the reality is I've got a lot of changes that are happening right now. This is not a project that I'm ready to start on at this moment. We do need to get the quotes together and everything, but I believe there's enough time for me to get that together and bring it back to you for transparency purposes. And I want to be as transparent as possible. So absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, guys.
Well, I'll amend my motion slightly, and that is that we support the sheriff in his request pending the production and review of a spreadsheet.
Perfect.
Second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you guys so much. I certainly appreciate all of your support and your time, and excited to start out with a 5-0 vote. Thank you, guys.
Don't get
Good
used
start. Great. All right, next item is public items. We have a public hearing, consideration for a proposed land development regulation amendment to Chapter 904, non-conformalities, and this is legislative in nature. There he is, the one and the only Phil Mattson. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Phil Mattson, Community Development Director, and we're here to bring for your consideration an amendment to Chapter 904, our nonconformity section of our land development regulations. This was requested by you toward the end of the last year, and it pertains to Mr. Jacob Allenbaugh's property. Mr. Allenbaugh is here today. We have a couple of slides to show you. I'm going to introduce Ryan Sweeney, who can take you through the unique circumstances leading to this nonconformity and our board's recommendation. It is a public hearing, and I believe there's a legal process still in that would go along with that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, for the record, I'm Ryan Sweeney, Chief of Current Development. I'll be brief because I don't want to go run through the whole history again, but I will run it through a brief history. But this should, by and large, be familiar to you all. This is an LDR amendment to Chapter 904 nonconformities, and it's specific to changing or allowing for a special situation for nonconforming communications towers. Let's see here if it'll advance. If not, you can just click it forward. So a quick background, the proposed LDR amendment is a result of an appeal by Mr. Jacob Allenbaugh regarding the ability to build a single-family home on a site with a non-conforming 500-foot tall communications tower. There was quite a bit of back and forth between staff over the course of about 2 years. Ultimately, Mr. Allenbaugh appealed. On July 23rd, 2020, the Planning and Zoning Commission denied that appeal and upheld, basically ruled that staff made the right decision, but they did sort of let on that this was a unique situation and that it could be further appealed. Further, on September 22nd, 2020, the board also denied the appeal, again affirmed both the P&Z and staff's decision, but did specify that, hey, this is a unique situation. We'd like to entertain an LDR amendment that would allow Mr. Allenbaugh to achieve what he would like, and you all did provide some pretty specific guidance. So if we could advance to the next slide. The proposed ordinance, the goal is to allow construction of single-family homes on sites with non-conforming communications towers, very limited throughout the county, probably somewhere between a handful, at most a dozen sites that this would apply to. The criteria that was outlined during the meeting was specific that no more than 2 single-family homes would be allowed on the non-conforming tower site. It must meet all other applicable zoning district requirements, like making sure the use is in fact allowed, and other requirements, density, setbacks, lot size criteria. There was also a specific recommendation for a 250-foot setback from the residence to the tower, and a requirement for a hold harmless agreement between the tower, or between the property owner and the county, that, you know, by allowing them to do this, the county is held harmless. Oh, we went backwards. We need to go the other way. There we go. And so the proposed ordinance does not include any changes to the county's tower regulations. This is specific to the non-conforming section of the code. It is narrowly focused, and it's based, again, on fairly unique circumstances for this site and just a few others throughout the county. And staff does support the proposed ordinance. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing at its December 10th, 2020 meeting and voted 5-0 to recommend that the board adopt the proposed ordinance. And staff's recommendation is that the board adopt the proposed non-conforming towers ordinance. Thank you.
The upshot of this will be to allow Mr. Allenbaugh to build 2 units on a very large acreage site. And with that, we can turn it over to the comments from the public or open the public hearing.
I think we would like to see if there's any commissioner.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and Ryan gave a brief history, but I'd like to go a little bit more details particularly for Commissioner Moss and Commissioner Ehrman, how we got here. This is a large rectangular shaped parcel. I forget, it's like 13 or 15 acres, something like that size. And it has a 500-foot tower right in the middle of it. And our ordinances say you can't build within 300% of the tower height. So that meant you had a fall zone of 1,500-foot radius. And based on that, it totally wiped out the entire property, was unavailable to build anything on it. And if we had applied this to the adjoining parcels, we would have taken out a lot of buildings on adjoining parcels as well. And this is one of those where staff was absolutely correct with their interpretation of our ordinances and their denial. P&Z was absolutely correct in their uphold of the denial. But it's one of those when the board recognized this, we said, you know what, we have to inject a little bit of common sense here and find a way to let Mr. Allenbaugh have some use of his property. So that's how we got here. This will allow him to put a house on the north third of the parcel and on the south third, and then he'll have to stay away from the middle where the tower is. And he also agreed to the hold harmless. So I think this is one of these situations where everybody has worked together on this, staff and the commission, to kind of do the right thing for, excuse me, a property owner that otherwise couldn't use his property at all. So that's kind of how we got here. And I'm very excited staff has brought this forward, and I fully intend to support it when we get to that point. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner Bryan, thanks for the explanation, and I did follow this from the beginning after I was elected, before I was sworn in, and I did read all the information. I remember you stating at the meeting, talking about this thing, and what I appreciate about it is that the commission and staff thought outside the box a little bit on this, and I really appreciate it because you're exactly right. It was no good for anybody, and basically some other structures were in the so-called fall zone. Right. So I think this is a good idea, and I tend to fully support it, and I like the fact that the process worked well on this one. And again, we did think outside the box, and you guys did a great job on everything y'all have done, and I appreciate that.
Well, the good earth has been around a long time, and the regulations have been around a little less time, but more importantly is technology produced cell towers. And I think it's time to look at any of these constraints that interfere with future development that could be done with safety in mind and with the public in mind and future growth in mind. So thank you, staff did an excellent job.
Nothing further to add?
How did this begin? How did you end up with a 500-foot cell phone tower there, and then have to address it after the fact? If
Right.
I understand it correctly.
Sure, Mr. Commissioner Moss. It goes back to, I believe the tower here, I have the staff report right here, and it was approved in '89. So this is not a cell tower, it's actually a radio tower, and that's why it's much taller. There's a very long history, but how we got to where we are today is, the tower's it was approved in '89, built in 1990, so we're going on 31 years now. It's been in place and has done its thing for the 30 plus years. Mr. Allenbaugh, who actually currently lives next door, so to speak, is interested in purchasing the property and building a home there. Again, like I said, there was about a 2-year back and forth of sort of an informal inquiry and then ultimately several letters back and forth, and that's what triggered all of the research. But ultimately, staff had to apply the rules as they were at the time, and that's how we got to the appeal.
Okay. So what now, in changing it, it's for any kind of tower? It would be for cell phone towers also, not radio towers
So it's
necessarily?
Mr. Commissioner Moss, it's specific to non-conforming towers, which are by use. So like I said, it's probably, there's an inventory of 50 to 80 towers throughout the county, but I'd say, guessing, because I didn't do a full forensic analysis, there's only 10 or a dozen that are over the 200-foot mark, and that of those, probably half of them are non-conforming for zoning purposes. Most towers are conforming. They're in a commercial industrial district. They've been permitted and built much more recently with the cell phone boom, so to speak. So it's very narrow in that it only applies to a very few sites throughout the county.
Okay, so I mean, it's not affecting residential then, what you're talking
Correct,
about? You're
correct.
talking about 10 or 12, is that what you said?
Yeah, correct. Probably about 10 to 12 parcels or sites throughout the entire county, and of those, maybe half this would apply to. It's not going to be a wholesale change to development throughout the county.
All right, well, I know that some members of the public are concerned about radiation from towers, so what you're saying then is the towers are not close to residential areas.
Right, and this doesn't change the tower ordinance whatsoever. This is sort of the opposite. Instead of a tower coming to residential, this is a residence coming to the tower, so to speak. So it's pretty rare and unique.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any further discussion? Open up the public hearing. Anyone like to speak in behalf of this item? Please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I'm Joseph Paladin. I'm the chairman of the Land Use Committee of the RNA, and I'm happy to support staff on this decision. I think it makes good sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Paladin. Good morning.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for considering this again. I'm Jacob Allenbaugh. I'm the one who started all this. Like they said, this is totally a case of residents coming to a tower. If I may, I think that obviously this ordinance was written to prohibit towers from being built near structures. Like for instance, my house was currently within this 300% fall radius, but it was outside the property, so it could be done when the original people who built my house did it. Whereas I'm looking for more property for my kids to grow up on and whatnot, and this is after the LDR amendment was written, and I want to give them a place to grow up and have a lot of place to roam and stuff. And so I'm coming to the tower. I'm accepting any risk that comes with it, or radiation, or whatever you would want to say would come with moving there. So it's not the reverse case where we're changing where towers could be built in the future. But thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Having given ample opportunity, seeing none coming forward, public hearing is closed.
Chairman, I'll go ahead and move staff recommendation.
Second. That's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Ehrman. Any further discussion amongst the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Great work. Got the same score as the sheriff, 5-0. Next item on the agenda, item 10A2, is the face covering ordinance, which is legislative in nature. We will have a brief presentation. Then I see that there are many members of the public that wish to speak. As customary with this item, due to the volume, we will be imposing the 3-minute presentation rule. And in addition, there may be some folks on the internet that wish to participate. And before we open that, we'll have the attorney present the disclaimer and discussion regarding that as well. But I'm going to turn this over to our county attorney at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On November 17th, 2020, the board enacted Ordinance 2020-17, which continued various face covering requirements. The ordinance required all persons working in restaurants, grocery stores, food service, salons, gyms, any rental, retail establishments or businesses open to the public or other indoor facility visited by the public to wear face coverings. The ordinance also required those persons entering county buildings and utilizing public transit to wear face coverings. Otherwise, the public was strongly encouraged to wear face coverings. The ordinance includes various exceptions, notes that consistent with Executive Order 20-244, that there shall be no collection of fines and penalties for individuals for violations of the ordinance, and finally, it sunsets today. Thus, the County Attorney's Office presents to you, the board, an ordinance which contains the same requirements, exceptions, enforcement provision, and a sunset date of March 16th, 2021. Previous ordinances on the face covering matter had a sunset date roughly about 60 days out. Thus, I drafted it to go to March 16th, 2021. Consistent with those prior ordinances, the board is free to consider any other duration, less or more, and would welcome a conversation from the board on that issue for direction. Other than that, just simply recommend that the board open the public hearing, take and consider any public comments taken, and then vote to adopt the proposed ordinance. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any member of the board wish to further discuss before we
At this
open the
time.
public hearing?
No, thank you.
Seeing none, we will open the public hearing at this point. If you wish to speak, please state your name and address for the record, and we will most certainly look forward to hearing you. Good morning.
My name is Deidre Smith. I've been a resident of Vero Beach for over 30 years, married into the town. I am going to ask that you end this order. Just to be personal, I have several medical conditions. One is complete hearing loss, and I've struggled to understand and hear a lot of you. I appreciate that the volume was turned up on your microphones, but when you wear the masks, it's very hard to understand what you're saying. I've never realized how much I depend on reading lips and facial expressions. I have appreciated the 3 men that have taken their mask off when they're speaking. It's been so much easier. One of my 4 children was diagnosed with cancer when he was 4. Now, when he had cancer and he was fragile, I didn't expect my church or my community to mask up to protect him. That was my job, mine and my husband's job. So we kept him out of those places where we felt that it would not be wise or healthy for him to be. I did not feel that my friends were uncaring when they did not mask up. Because I have medical conditions that prevent me from wearing a mask, I am accosted quite often if I go someplace. I should not have to defend my medical conditions. There are already laws in place for that, to protect that. But because of these kind of ordinances that even our governor does not want, I am constantly dealing with the stress of who's going to accost me. It's quite easy for me to go to a store unmasked and be conscientious by keeping social distance from those, especially those. I don't touch all kinds of products. I am very careful, but I do find that a lot of time masks give people a false sense of security, where they're closer to people, they're not, they're touching all kinds of stuff than touching their masks. People have come up here and laid their mask down that's supposedly having germs in it, and then they pick it back up, they stick it in their pocket, they're touching your face, they're shaking your hand. I'm much more conscientious of nothing touching my face. So I just thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration, and I please ask that you would respect the laws in place, protect us, our privacy, and our right to be where we want to be and to not be masked up. Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you turn this projector on again?
We can have someone assist you. Good morning, your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Chris Allen, and I'm an Indian River County resident. I put up the daily new cases for Ireland, and basically when the ordinances were put on there, you could see that it was already pretty much low when they started public transit for most indoor spaces, and masks and busy or crowded outdoor spaces. And as you could see, none of them really did much for the peak that's going on towards the end. And flip it over, this is in Japan when the New York Times had a big article that said, hey, guess what, masks worked in Japan. Well, they didn't seem to look further into different dates when it started peaking again, which kind of goes along with what we've always been saying, that masks really don't do anything when it comes to viruses, bacteria. You have a better argument, but people are always touching their masks, so it doesn't help much at all. I've looked online, and I found a really good quote that said, when did we start letting a virus dictate our lives instead of God? If we, instead of looking at our fellow men as, our neighbors, our friends, family, we're just stuck seeing them as a germ factory. And it's pretty sad that it's come to this, and it's your COVID response that has actually killed the economy and small businesses, not the virus itself. I always hear, oh, look at what coronavirus has done, but it's not. It's their response to it that's hurt us so much. And even our small town, we've lost so many businesses because of your beliefs. Your mandates, they inspire fear instead of hope. So of course, when somebody goes into a store, they're gonna get accosted for not wearing a mask. Even our students are failing at schools because the health department has taken it upon themselves to quarantine healthy children. And, I feel like this is something that the board could work on also, so that, they don't stop failing. I know kids who have been quarantined twice, and I don't think any of them have actually tested positive for coronavirus. The CDC itself has been complicit in this, when it even stated in, I think, early February, that it sent lab test kits that were contaminated with the virus itself. And another thing that the CDC has changed is the masking, because now there's commercials and news stories that you should wear 2 masks because 1 mask didn't work. So they're basically telling us that it never worked without telling us. 1 mask isn't good enough, so now they want you to wear 2. Like, what's next? Just wear an oxygen tank so you don't have to breathe out at all? And that's all I could think of for now, or at least I have time for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Antoinette Beck. I live in Indian River County. I am against extending the state of emergency, and please vote against a mask or vaccine ordinance. As an American, I want to sustain my personal health freedom and my own choices on what I do. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for your input and your brevity. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Doug Skate. I live at 1820 Tarpon Lane, Vero Beach. I want to thank the commissioners for giving me the opportunity to talk.
I come to you scared. No, I come to you as a senior citizen, scared to my soul. For the life of me, I don't understand how wearing a protective mask has become a political statement. The mere fact that you have to meet to decide to mask or not mask is not understood by me. In my world, I would like to see that every American citizen would voluntarily wear a mask. If an individual finds wearing a mask inconvenient, they probably will not find wearing a ventilator any more comfortable. A few reminders for you. From the Press Journal dated January 16th, Indian River County Health Officer Miranda Hawker stated, the county has a 14.5% positivity rate. For a local comparison, that means that 1 out of every 7 people in this room could be a COVID spreader. Again, that's 1 out of 7. From the most recent copy of the Vero Beach Indian River paper, has just under 1,000 new cases of COVID each week. That's an average of 125 new cases each day. For a comparison, during the surge in July, Indian River County was experiencing 55 cases a day. We are losing the war in Indian River County and in America. This is no time to lessen any mask requirements. Each of us can remember exactly where we were on 9/11. In that tragic event, 2,900 lives were lost, mostly Americans. Nationwide, we are now losing 4,400 Americans a day. While I am speaking, we will pass 400,000 more dead Americans, with 90,000 more expected to pass in the next 3 weeks. Soon we will pass 500,000. Please, for Pete's sakes, inside of our Indian River County, don't remove the last line of protection in the required protection of a mask and social distancing. Do not remove these limitations. Help keep Indian River County safer than our national efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
My name is Carolyn Kleinpeter, and I live in Vero Beach, and I'm going to speak fast so I can get my time in. I see your lawyers did their due diligence to draft many examples on the agenda as to why we should be wearing a mask. However, it was proven this weekend that the courts are a sham. For example, in the presidential election, they would not see the evidence put forth. And this weekend, the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, issued a report stating China interfered in the 2020 election. Out of personal experience, I do not put my faith in the court system. However, the Bill of Rights is still in the Constitution of the United States of America, and our Creator is the source of human equality and natural rights. We are one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. Under the laws of nature and nature's God, all human beings are equally endowed with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you placed your hand on the Bible and took an oath to the Constitution, each one of you. Your overreach is thwarting my liberty and happiness, and I do not consent, and you are supposed to have the consent of the people. First, I would like to remind the Commission that the CDC has given guidance. I would also like to remind the Commission that the CDC was the same Department of Health that performed the Tuskegee experiments, which they still compensate the victims' families today. If you are not familiar with the experiment, they began a study to record the natural history of syphilis in the hopes of justifying treatment programs for blacks. It was called the Tuskegee study of the untreated syphilis in Negro males, in the Negro male. It is an experiment. It is an example of the corruption of the CDC and the crimes they have committed against humanity. You believe you are protecting health. However, there is much research opposing the use of masks, and one is bacterial pneumonia caused by rebreathing the bacteria and toxins you exhale that God has designed you to do. According to the Hartford Healthcare, they are quoting the same Fossey of the CDC last spring that there were 60,000 deaths, and then later, very quietly, changed that record to be 30,000. We also have lived years with the flu, and that did not make you go to the extreme. By passing this ordinance, I believe you are guilty of clinical research on the general population under the guidance of the CDC, who I believe is guilty of crimes against humanity, and you want to go into the law aspect individually. You are practicing medicine on the population without a license in the state of Florida. As part of the governed in Indian River County, I do not consent to the proposed mandate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Perfect timing.
Good morning.
One moment,
Kathy
please.
Anderson, an Indian River County resident.
Just want to show we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. There was a tone going on, and I didn't want it to interfere with your presentation.
Thank you. I fear that gradually, though no one will remember exactly how it happened, the unthinkable is closer than ever to becoming our new normal. I have always believed in individual accountability and responsibility while also being thoughtful about others. It's hard for me to even imagine that I would even feel the need to stand here having to express the fact that I also believe in our right to freedom of choice and speech. I thought that was a given. But after all these months where the debate of whether or not to wear face masks is concerned, I continue to believe that face masks should be optional with no penalties for those who choose not to wear them. Yes, I fear that gradually, though no one will remember exactly how it happened, the unthinkable is closer than ever to becoming our new normal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
I don't usually get that involved with.
Name and address for the record. Name and address for the record, sir.
Oh.
We need to.
Steiger.
Thank you.
Sebastian.
Thank you, sir.
Anyway, I think what's happening in our country has gotten me very concerned and upset, to be honest. I think our government has forgotten who is supposed to be in control. Seems like all levels of government have gotten to the point where they feel that the people don't have the right to say things. And you don't have a right to live your life, to make your own decisions on different things. I personally have a problem with a mask for my own medical conditions. But here again, my history of quarantines across the time has said that people who are sick usually are quarantined. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that we're quarantining and requiring people to wear protective things that aren't sick. And basically, what I hear about today is that the research is showing that people are getting sick from wearing the mask. It's affecting their lungs. As a matter of fact, even to their teeth. People are having problems because the bacteria that you usually breathe out is you're breathing it again and causing more problems for everybody. And in the long run, the other thing is psychologically, it has an effect on everybody in our community, down to our children. And the long-term effects of forcing people and our children to wear masks, nobody knows what psychological effects it's going to have on them the rest of their lives. They can't communicate. Kids play, touch things. They touch each other. This is part of living as a human being. And when you stop them from doing that, how are you affecting them and the growth of them in their future? They're afraid to touch people. They're afraid to get close to people. Psychologically, I think this is destroying our nation. And I'm really upset about it all, and I don't know what more can be said, but I'm definitely opposed to forcing people to do it. If somebody wants to wear a mask, great. But don't force me to do it because, like I said, you're not doctors. They don't know my medical conditions, and I don't want to have to go into a store and have somebody say, "Where's your mask? Put a mask on." I don't think I have to explain to them that I have a medical problem, and I don't want to wear one, and I can't wear one. So that's my opinion on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dawn Wilkerson. I'd like to come this morning to say that I could possibly persuade you to make masks optional and to also care about our personal health freedom, but sadly, I think you already have your minds made up. So today, I really come to speak for the Indian River County residents, for our community. As more and more news comes out that asymptomatic spread is questionable and the science behind the efficiency of masks is also questionable, more and more people are saying enough is enough. If they really care about us, wouldn't they instead mandate healthy foods, exercise, vitamins, the role of sleep in helping our bodies, going outside to make vitamin D, but instead, we are sadly told, wear your mask. And also, you are suggesting for us to take an experimental vaccine that could potentially kill us, cause adverse reactions, and even affect a woman's ability to become pregnant. And who knows what else, because there haven't been enough studies on the effectiveness of this experimental vaccine. Why vaccinate against a virus similar to the common cold with a 99% recovery rate? Masks really don't make sense. Masks do something all right. They make it difficult to breathe properly. They lower our immune systems. They spread bacteria. They give a false sense of security. States and countries that have mask mandates are at a higher percentage rate of death. I'm hearing, I think it's even in Norway, there's over 24 deaths now from the vaccine. Even the FDA considers masks to be a type of medical device. It changes the physiology of your body. How can a person be forced by any business or government entity to wear a mask without having a medical history or a physical exam by a licensed doctor who knows the complete medical history and approves such an action? We know that the testing is faulty. Everything is labeled as COVID this year. Most people I know who have had the Wuhan virus were avid mask wearers. Shouldn't that tell us something? Masks don't work. I don't wear a mask because I don't want to get the virus. Please do the right thing and lift the mask mandate in our county. Stop the division in our country, help unite the community, and restore personal health freedom. I want our community united, and this is dividing us. I am a God-fearing, freedom-loving patriot who realizes that this ends when people say we've had enough. That time is now. I know for me and for my family and many friends, we won't be masked, tracked, chipped, or vaccinated. I have never worn a mask to a store. I have a personal medical condition why I can't, but I'm also tired of people being harassed for not wearing a mask. You have the power to help us and unite our community, and that's what I would ask you to do. Please, thank you.
Thank you. We have that reset. Please come to the podium. Good morning.
Good morning, County Commissioners. My name is Lamar Notor Giacomo. I live at 5082 4th Lane. And I don't think you're asking for that now, but you usually do if I don't say it, so there you go. I'm just asking you to use common sense and to allow people to be free. I was very excited at the last meeting when you invited teams from other counties that are locked down to come and participate in sports. It made my heart happy. It makes my heart happy when I see kids out there doing sports and being normal. I read a story by Brian Colfage. I don't remember if he's in our county or another Florida county. His child goes to a small Christian school. They've never mandated masks. The kids and the teachers are very happy. One teacher has gotten COVID, and very few of the children have gotten COVID. So I'm just asking you to use common sense. And like Dawn, I feel like I'm wasting my time coming here because I feel like you've already made up your minds. But, you know, it'd be nice to know that you're listening, and all the documentation, all the scientific documentation, you could go to the Florida Department of Health right now, and you can see the stats, you can see the graph going nosediving because we've basically reached herd immunity. But, you know, you'll say that it's not real science if I say that. Even if I provide documentation, which I've done time and time and time again. I've emailed you, I've brought documentation here. I never get responses from anybody. Is that because your attorney tells you you can't answer? Because that's what the school board says. After 10 years of going to school board meetings, they tell me they cannot answer my questions because their attorneys tell them what they can and cannot say. I don't know, Dylan, maybe you could answer that. Are they allowed to answer our questions?
I've certainly not said I've not said there's a gag order on any responses.
Okay, well, that's what the school board tells me. In fact, the last meeting I went to for the school board, that's what they said. We can't answer your questions because our attorneys tell us we can't. But I don't get responses to emails or my verbal presentations either, no matter how well documented. So I just have to say I'm very frustrated, and I don't believe that you are hearing us. And I'm not sure who you're listening to. I don't know if it's the dollars that come with COVID, but I know that there are counties, and Ruth may have addressed this, or one of our members may have addressed this, that there's one county that never did lockdown and never took federal money, and they're doing just fine. So listen to the stats. There were 0 deaths yesterday, and of course they will adjust those numbers. So who can really trust them at the Florida Department of Health? But today they're saying that there were 0 deaths on the 17th. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Ruth, there's either a chair there you can bring up, or you can sit there. It's your choice. And just to, I don't know the full issue, but just to explain to the board, I do know that Indian River County School Board is in a lawsuit regarding their face mask items. So their attorney may have said, hey, we're in a party in litigation, so I'd like to not have any communications on that. So I just want to give some background on that.
Right.
Commissioners, my name is Ruth Kovaleski, founder of the Indian River Freedom Coalition, a group of 862 freedom lovers. We say good morning on day 308 of our 14 days to flatten the curve. In spite of the ever-tempting CARES Act federal funds that we citizens will indirectly pay for in taxes and inflation, we are here to ask once again you lift the state of emergency and stop mandatorily masking employees. Cases don't mean sick, and if your measures worked, each of the 4 times we appeared here for an extension of this illegal order, your health officer wouldn't say, in spite of the extremely low death rate and extremely high recovery rate, well, we aren't in a desperate state yet, but the next terrible outbreak is just around the corner. You ask us for science, we gave it to you many times over, and still we have come back to repeat today that the people of Indian River County do not consent to mandatory enforced masks, contact tracing, shutdowns, or vaccines. This is my 3rd time I've put you on notice that you have violated Title 18 U.S. Constitution Code 1038 and 1040, which states that false information and hoaxes, in this case the state of emergency, for more than 14 days without cause, states, and I quote, in general, whoever engages in any conduct with intent to convey false or misleading information under circumstances where information may be reasonably believed, where such information indicates that an activity is taken, has taken, or will take place, that would constitute a violation, shall be fined and imprisoned for up to 5 years, and if serious bodily injury or death results, that becomes 20 years to life with no statute of limitations. This was to stop tyrannical leaders from doing exactly what you've been doing, keeping us under a state of emergency. We do not consent, and we are demanding your bond and damages. To quote freedom fighter Tara Hill, if the mask or vaccine was a miracle, there would be no need for mass coordinated marketing campaigns. No one would attack those who question safety or efficacy or censor online discussion. It wouldn't require snappy hashtags, incentives, fact checkers, paid influences, flashing signs, hit pieces on freedom fighters, peer pressure, or forced compliance. Instead, we choose to trust our Creator God's perfect design of our body's immune system, and herd immunity is provided by God to heal us naturally. Let people do what they like again, be that wear a mask or not. We expect a minimum of personal health freedom from our representatives, and it is high time this board course corrects, lifts this emergency order, and rescinds this ordinance. I dare you to be brave enough to vote no. Thank you, Chair Flesher, for doing so. To my fellow freedom fighters, I say, the resistors of this tyranny are the defenders of truth and liberty, and I thank you. Join us, buyourfreedom.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Richard Allen. I'm a resident here in Indian River County. And you hear all the people talking about the mask mandate. And I would like to ask you, why the mandate? Is it because you think you're following CDC guidelines? Because CDC merely recommends it right now. They don't mandate it. Why the mandate? Are you afraid that if you just recommend it, as the CDC does, that nobody will wear a mask? That's not the case. You know that a lot of people out there are fearful for their life, and they will choose to wear a mask, rightfully so. That's their choice. They have that right. I don't think you should mandate the masks anymore. I ask you to please let people make the choice. Lift the mandate. If you choose to go on with the mandate, what's the line? What's it going to be? What has to happen to get you to lift the mandate? Is it the number of cases? Is it the number of deaths? What is it? Do you even know at this point what you're looking for? Is it the vaccines? Well, they're here. So what is it going to take to get you to lift the mandate? Please, businesses are going out of business. There's another one we just found last night, a pizza shop, local favorite here. They're gone. I listened to their voicemail. It says as of the 18th, they're closed down until further notice. They may not come back. We don't know. And there's so many other businesses in town that are doing the same thing. They're either on the edge or on the verge, and let them choose for themselves whether to have a mask mandate for their employees. Let the grocery stores choose for themselves. There's no reason to mandate it. If you want, take your CARES Act money, put it into educating people more, putting out all the good information out there, and let them make the choice themselves. Please don't force people to do things. You get more people to comply when it's of their own free will than you will if it's a mandate. You know, this is only masks for now, but it could be anything. It could be color shoes. If somebody mandates it, somebody else is going to take offense to that. So please, I ask you, lift the mandate and let people make the choice for themselves. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward. Mac, you can't speak from where you're sitting. If there's somebody there, we're going to come back to that now. Thank you. Kim, do we have some people that wish to speak? I'd like the attorney to address that issue as far as public input. That's via the internet. And Counselor, if you would, I would appreciate it, so everybody knows the guidelines.
Thank you very much. We have a code of conduct for our online participation, just in any regards. It applies also to our online conduct for those who are participating with regards to this public hearing. As typical of, we do not allow for any profane language or content. We do not allow for personal attacks. We do not allow for any sexual content or links to sexual content or content that includes any unlawful contact. Comments that are clearly off topic will be prohibited or shut off. We do not allow any advertising services or selling products, and spam or other links will be prohibited. And then any information that would compromise the safety or security of the public or our system would also be prevented. So those are our rules of conduct for any usage of our internet, and they would apply to also those participating in this hearing. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Counselor, thank you so much. And Kim? You don't have any at this point?
We have it looks like Nicole Campanelli has their hand raised.
Looks like we have someone with a hand raised, yes. Top left. Yeah. Good morning. Miss Nicole Campanelli, are you on the air?
Yeah, they're unmuted.
You have it open. It appears to be muted. There she is. Good morning. Either she's on mute or we're on mute. One moment. Okay,
You may need to unmute.
ma'am, you appear to be on mute. Could you unmute your line so we can hear you? Good morning. We are attempting to give her opportunity to speak. Which we have no control over. It's not on our end.
Can you send her a note in chat to unmute? Are you able to do that? To send her a note under chat to unmute?
I don't-
Kim, you're going to send it only to that one.
Mm. We're sending a resident internet expert down to you. Thank you, Commissioner. It appears she has significant input and she does not want to, not.
Mr. Chair, do you want to get somebody down here? Do you want to take a break until we do that?
Is there any way that we can send her the communication? Is it happening or?
If we could take maybe a
Yeah.
recess.
You know what, in addition, and it appears that she does have significant input there, and I would like to give her fair and equal opportunity. At this point, we can take a brief recess and continue with the public hearing on the internet. So we will resume that once we come back and seat as a board. We'll take a few minutes. Thank you. mention, is she on?
Yes.
And can you call her? Okay. Thank you. We'll now resume the public hearing, and we now can hear you, and we apologize for the technology.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so good morning. Sorry about that. My name is Nicole Campanelli. I'm a resident of Indian River County. I'm against the extension of the mask mandate. A virus must run its course, and the facts are that masks do not actually stop transmission of any virus, nor can they filter viruses you are exposed to. They've never been able to before the pandemic, and they magically cannot do so now. You're buying into a false sense of security to believe that they can do, that they can hold on. That they can do what even the manufacturers state that they cannot. So essentially, this is about liberty, but more a sense of fighting for freedoms against policies that absolutely lack conclusive scientific evidence. This is not about the inconvenience of wearing something on your face or not liking to be told what to do. Conflicting science about a behavioral requirement that affects everyone and discriminates against many is simply unacceptable. Believing a mask will save you from a virus that is airborne while ignoring the fact that everyone's hands are touching everything just goes to show you how truly uneducated you are and how pathogen transmission occurs. We are on day 309 of 15 days to flatten the curve. My personal story from this past week is standing at the deli maskless at Publix, and the little old ladies pull down their masks and stick their heads real close to my 5-month-old to smile and make faces at him. But aren't they spreading COVID? They don't even know why they're wearing a mask because they're doing it. If they are, because they're doing it, they're going to pull down and talk, right? My other favorite is people wearing a mask who compromise their health by smoking cigarettes and even eating garbage fast food. Yet I'm supposed to protect their health? That's a joke, right? Everyone is in charge of their own health. The last few weeks in this county, the recovery rate daily was 97.8%. Did we ever wear a mask for the flu? No. Why is this different with such a high recovery rate? No to extending this mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any? Yes? Good morning.
Hello?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Jennifer Pippin, and I'm an Indian River County resident since 2003. And I apologize I'm not able to be there in person. I had an appointment with my daughter at the DMV at 8 a.m., and they are still backed up. We are still here with an appointment. So she's in there taking her test, and I'm out here on the phone with you guys. And I have a 6-speech plan. I
Pippin. Do we have anyone else that's seeking to have input?
I'd like to speak. Is that possible?
No.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Please go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Tess Whalen, and I'm a resident of the County of Vero Beach. I represent the 800-member group Mask IRC. I'm here by video or voice. I can't tell which one right now.
We can hear you.
Sorry?
We can hear you. Please go ahead, ma'am.
I'm here because there are too many people in the meeting room who insist on behaving as spreaders, not as caring fellow citizens who are concerned for the safety of their neighbors. I really can't believe we're here debating this again, and that once again, despite the raging pandemic, we're having to listen to people denying what we're all seeing happening all around us. I have only one point to make, and that is this. A judge in St. Lucie County just ruled that a full mask mandate is not an invasion of privacy. It is not discriminatory. She ruled that no one has a constitutional right to infect others. You do not need the public's consent to enact a face covering mandate. We know that face masks work to reduce the spread of COVID. We know this. All respected experts agree. The science is indisputable despite what you've seen and heard today. We are not watching the disappearance of infections here. We have not achieved anything close to herd immunity. I support your efforts to keep Indian River County's citizens safe. In fact, I urge you to go one step further and enact a full mask mandate for all citizens. The way to saving our local economy is to make sure all citizens are masked and more of us feel we can move about the county safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that wishes to speak or is waving?
I'd like to speak if you're through the phones.
Please come to the podium.
Okay, I guess I will.
State your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. Deborah Cooney. Just went for a swim in the ocean. Best way to stay healthy. Wearing masks is not a way to stay healthy. In fact, I forwarded some information. Of course, when I email you the information, I have no confirmation that you actually get it, and then you refuse to acknowledge that you got it. But I'm going to say it anyway. I sent you a couple of medical articles regarding bacterial pneumonia, which is on the rise from mask wearing. And the mask wearing is actually very, very harmful to humans. It interferes with breathing. It catches a lot of bacteria in the mask, and then instead of the bacteria leaving and recirculating as it should be, as you're breathing freely, the bacteria gets caught in the mask, and then it reinfects you, and it makes you very sick. So it's not a good solution, and it's not something that we've ever done in the past. I mean, people in the past were smart enough to know that, you know, you don't put something in front of your face and disturb your breathing. That is not a good way to stay healthy. Furthermore, there have been other reports of masks actually killing people. So we think the coronavirus is killing people, and well, that issue is debatable. I mean, the CDC admitted that 96% or somewhere around that number of people that supposedly died from COVID-19 actually died from comorbidities. That means they were in car accidents, or they had cancer, or they had heart disease, or they had a stroke, or there's something else going on. So we really have no confirmation that COVID-19 has killed anybody. In fact, there's a lot of debate about germ theory, whether it even exists or not, whether it's the organisms that actually cause the disease, or whether it's actually the French scientist says, the milieu, the body's environment, and the environment that actually causes disease. So the reports of people being killed from masks include someone who was driving wearing a mask who passed out because he couldn't breathe, and it caused a car crash. Okay, so this is not a harmless idea. This idea of wearing masks. There actually has been harm. There has been other harm reported from wearing masks, and that would be to teenage boys who were at an athletic practice and working out, breathing heavily, and they passed out and ended up passing away from because they were forced to wear masks. So the masks are harmful. I mean, now with the way you have it, with the exemptions, it's easy enough for those of us who have difficulty breathing with masks to get around it. So we're working with it, but we really shouldn't have a mask mandate at all when there is actually harm caused by masks. Thank you very much.
Ms. Cooney, thank you for your input. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Do we have anybody else on the line? Wait, see if there's a momentary delay. Is there anyone else seeking opportunity to speak? No? Having given fair and equal opportunity to speak on this topic, public hearing is now closed. I want to thank everybody for attending in presence, attending virtually. Your input is important, and we respect it. I know that we all heard you, and thank you for that. We've heard a lot of discussion today and presentation. We've heard opinion, and while I appreciate everyone's opinion, the science is also based on opinion, based on fact, and it is not 100% clear. It has changed many times, and I respect that. After all, in the medical field, they call it a practice. And there are certain unknowns and factors that are enshrouded with this very disease and the contagions that we may or may not be exposed to. So I can understand everyone's concern. Again, I appreciate a lot of the comments that were stated. There's a lot of truth to what is being said. In the past, I have been clear that I would like the decision to be made for the people, by the people, to wear a mask or not wear a mask. I've done several PSAs. I know some of my colleagues have done some PSAs encouraging folks to wear a mask when they cannot socially distance, wash their hands frequently. If they find they are ill, stay home, and ensure that those same rules that we've all been governed by for other events of such magnitude. And anytime we have a contagious disease, there is some protocol that we all need to follow. I'm not saying that I do not support the mask wearing. It's merely that when we look at a mask mandate, we're talking about mandatory. And when we have mandatory, we are exposing others to conflict about the mandate, specifically when the governor stated very clearly that we cannot impose fines and penalties for that mandate. So what are we doing? I believe that if we have all of the tools, someone even recommended, and we are doing that, is having PSAs and other informationals about wearing masks and doing the right thing, doing what's expected of you, not to spread the disease. Well understood. But to have a mandate, to me, without any consequence, is feeling good for so many. And I know that some jurisdictions do not have mandates for mask wearing, and their numbers are either no different or even worse than what we have. So, again, it's very difficult, and I initiated this with, there was a lot of fact, and there's a lot of fiction. And we have a dichotomy of information, of suggestions for mask wearing and not mask wearing. I'm not getting into the debate. I'm just saying that I find it very difficult and disingenuous to move forward a mandate that cannot be enforced. We cannot enforce the mandate because there is no consequences. And I should also state that this county, we've had the mandate for the building, yet we've had groups of individuals who are employed here that have been exposed to the COVID virus and have had COVID in reasonable numbers. And it's very difficult to do contact tracing when we've gone through Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays, and it could be a stroke of luck that all of those individuals were gathered into that one division, or even wearing the mask and all the plexiglass that we have, still was there a contact at work. It's very difficult to identify, and I guess you also heard most of the public access points for your local government are well insulated. We've spent a lot of funds on putting plexiglass barriers up. There's deputies at some of the sites to ensure that we have complete compliance. Everyone is social distanced. I don't know if the mandate, since it's not enforceable, that we are not better off ensuring that the people are aware that it's a good idea, it's their choice, and we are promoting washing your hands, social distancing, staying at home if you're ill, get checked, get vaccinated, and wear a mask when you cannot social distance. Thank you. Commissioners.
I'll go ahead and weigh in, Mr. Chairman, thank you. First, a couple people commented on sent articles and such to us. We got cyber attacked a few months ago, and I don't open any attachment that's coming from the outside. So if you'd like me to read something, it'd be better if you print it out and mail it. But just with the cyber attack we had, and our IT staff have told us, don't open any attachments unless you know exactly where it's coming from. So if you want me to read something, please print it and mail it or drop it off, and I'll be glad to take a look at it. Kind of agree with the one caller who said, why are we even having this discussion again? In the past, I've promoted to make it a 6-month ordinance so that we don't have to go through this every 60 days. We just talked last week at the rate of vaccines we're getting, it's going to be well over 6 months before we even get to the 65-year-olds vaccinated. So I just don't see anything changing in 60 days, so I'd still be supportive of going 6 months. We've talked about this before. You know, I look at this as exactly like smoking or alcohol use, okay? I don't give a darn if you want to smoke and get lung cancer and die of that. That's your choice. Everybody's absolutely right. That's your personal choice. You want to smoke, get lung cancer, die, I don't care. However, if you come in this room and start smoking and it affects me, that's when I care. And it's not, and that's why we have rules and laws to say, no, you can't smoke inside, because your personal activity could harm other people. Same with drinking. You want to stay home and drink all day and corrode your liver and die of liver disease, fine, have at it. But if you drink and get behind the wheel of a car, you could negatively impact someone else. So we have rules and laws that says, no, you can't drink and drive. And this is exactly the same thing. If you want to stay home and invite a bunch of people over to your house and nobody wear a mask and have a big party and all catch COVID together, that's fine. But when you come in here and you could be asymptomatic, so you could still be transmitting the virus and impacting other people, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's why we have the mask mandate. And it's not just the mask. It's the mask and social distancing and doing all the other things, washing your hands and all that. And you wear the mask not to protect yourself, but to protect others. And we've talked about this before. Those of you that wear glasses or sunglasses and you have a mask on, what happens? When you
Can't see.
exhale, they fog up, because instead of going out 6 feet, that exhale is being trapped closer to you. So between the mask and 6 feet, you're preventing people from catching the virus from you if you happen to have it. And that's what we need to do to keep everybody safe. As far as unconstitutional, challenge to your liberty, all these kind of constitutional things, every court in the country has ruled it's not unconstitutional to have a mask mandate. So I think we can put that argument to bed. You know, someone mentioned use common sense. Well, I look at the fact that surgeons wear a mask all day, day after day, and you don't hear any reports of surgeons keeling over right and left. So all of this talk to how the masks are killing people, I find kind of to be an internet legend there. Economic-wise, businesses are closing because people aren't coming out to spend money. Okay, there's a significant portion of our population, a lot of them 65 and older, and we've seen the demand for the vaccine from this group, so we know they're concerned about COVID. They're not going out. Okay, that's why that pizza place is closing, not because the employees have to wear a mask. It's because all of those folks, close to 50,000 residents, aren't going out and spending money because they're scared to death because not everybody else is wearing a mask. So if we really want to talk about economy and keeping local businesses going, then all of you should be wearing a mask so that all these other people can feel safe to go out and spend money in our local economy. A lot of the recent spikes, one lady showed a graph, yeah, it's going up because everybody didn't follow the guidelines, follow the recommendations. They had big Thanksgiving and Christmas get-togethers, and we're seeing the impact of that now. I do agree, I think the death rate is going down, and I think that's good. I think that's partly because day after day and with more experience, the doctors are getting better at knowing how to treat it. And I think more and more of the cases are a younger population, so that they're better able to fight it off and not have a mortality, so I think that's good. However, we are still seeing our hospitalization numbers go up, and that is a concern. So while we may not be having the same mortality rate, we still have a pretty significant hospital rate going on. So I haven't seen anything that would make me want to say, okay, we can go mask free. I think we need to continue the mandate. We need to continue to get the message out that you need to wear a mask to protect others, and the others will wear a mask to protect you, and to keep your social distancing and treat this seriously as I think it deserves, and that if we do that, more people will go out, they'll feel more comfortable going out if they feel safe, and they'll spend money locally. So I am all for reauthorizing the ordinance. I would love it if commissioners would go along, we could do it for 6 months, so we don't go through this every 60 days. But either way, I think we still need it, and I will be supporting of the mask ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Hammond.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner O'Brien, well said, and I have to agree with you on everything I believe you covered. I want to cover a couple things. I don't know if I'd call this what we have even in place right now, a mandate. I would call it by its name. I would call it by ordinance, because it's obviously, I hear people talk about, well, we have a mask mandate. Read the ordinance, what it says. It says, all persons working in restaurants, grocery stores, food service, salons, gyms, or retail establishments open to the public or any other indoor facility visited by the public shall wear face coverings. All persons in county buildings, county transport, any other persons physically present in any place in any river county are strongly encouraged to wear face coverings. We've even gotten lax. We have an ordinance in our own building, and many of you are sitting in this room without a mask right now. So it's kind of lax. We understand, and we understand strongly that there is no repercussions, there is no enforcement of this, and I understand that completely. And so to say it's a mandate and like this is some bad thing, I think we're actually pretty lax in Indian River County, and there's part of me that says that we ought to go back to the with the numbers being up and et cetera, that we ought to go back to the proposal that was asked about back in early July before the elections and stuff even took place in August and November. I just, I have a real hard time, such as I believe Commissioner O'Brien said, believing this is a violation of your personal rights is unconstitutional. I don't buy into that one bit. I think this is a different time. I think it's a true medical issue that we're having, and I dealt with medical issues and people having a really bad day for 35 years. So I've seen things that can happen, and a lot of things we didn't care about back then, and maybe we're paying for now. But I don't know if I'd call this a mandate. I think we're pretty lax in some of our issues. Stores that require you to wear a mask is the same as you have to wear a shirt and shoes when you go into a business. I mean, it's no different. They have the right to refuse you service if you're not complying with what they're doing. If they want you to wear a mask because their company or their business feels it's important, and that's what we need to do. The information, like Chairman Fleischer said and Commissioner O'Brien said, the information's all over the place on this. I just think it's the right thing to do. I think it's what we have to do. And again, you've heard me say this before, and it has to deal with self-responsibility about how you treat your fellow man, such as smoking. We have smoking laws, as I think Commissioner O'Brien stated, and for the same reasons. If you want to smoke, that's fine, but don't smoke on me. I just feel that it's an obligation we have to be self-responsible and care about our fellow man in this time because of these issues and things that are happening. And I am for extending what we have currently. And Commissioner O'Brien, I finally agree with you now. I think we ought to go at least 4 to 6 months. I would either one is good with me. 6 months would work for me. I would support that in this case, because I think we need to concentrate on what we're doing and getting the vaccine out. Hopefully, I know we were at the fairgrounds with the governor, and Commissioner O'Brien was representing the county, and the governor said, if you get the vaccine out faster, we'll get it to you. Some people don't want the vaccine, and I get that too, and you have that right. Just like you don't have you could tell you, I don't want the flu vaccine, or I don't want the measles and all that sort of stuff. I get that. And we all know that vaccines all carry a risk of having a reaction. No matter what vaccine you take, of all the vaccines they've ever made, there's always a possible reaction. We've all heard, I got the flu shot and got the flu. Well, there may be some. But that's a decision that you have to make, and a decision that we have to make as a public, where to wear a mask or not. It's all in the same. So as far as I'm concerned, I will support what we currently have in place with an extension of longer than 60 days.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammond. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I am in agreement with my fellow commissioners. 60 days is an extension to 60 day, or I'm sorry, a 6-month extension, I think is good to provide continuity. We could always rescind it if something magically changes between now and then, although I highly doubt that it will. As I've said from the start, for me, the masks and this whole issue is an economic issue. You're not going to jumpstart the economy until people are comfortable moving around and spending their money. People are not going to be comfortable moving around until they feel safe to do so. We also have a responsibility to our employees to provide a safe working environment for them. And this, to me, is no different than a business deciding to require their employees to wear a mask. We operate certain departments as businesses, and we have a responsibility to make sure that our employees are coming to a safe work environment. In other states of emergency, we have mandates that are not enforced. They're looked at as safety suggestions. One of those is during hurricanes, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. During hurricanes in a state of emergency, we mandate that people evacuate in certain areas. Do we go out and arrest them or fine them if they don't evacuate? No. But so why do we do this? We do it because it's in their best interest for the safety of themselves, for the safety of the community, and for the safety of the first responders and other people that are dealing with that state of emergency. This, to me, is no different. It is a message that we're sending that doing this and wearing a mask is in the best interest of our community. It's in the best interest of our economy. And my position on that hasn't changed since we've had this discussion during the summer. So Commissioner O'Brien and Commissioner Ehrman, I agree with you guys, and I would be happy to support a 6-month extension.
Thank you. You know, I see both sides of this, and by the way, I want to thank everyone in the audience who's come today. We are listening. We do hear you. We've received many, many emails and many phone calls. And to anyone whose email or phone call I've not yet returned, I apologize, and I will get to it, I promise you. But you may recall, and I think some of you were in the audience at the time, when I was on Vero Beach City Council as vice mayor, and we did at that time receive almost 700 emails. That was an occasion I couldn't read everything. We got 150 after midnight for a meeting at 8:30 a.m. I will never forget that. But the almost 700 emails were pretty much evenly split. It was almost 50-50 between pro-mask and anti-mask, with it being slightly in favor of pro-mask. So I do, honestly see both sides of it, and I do thank you, for your courage, your conviction, and social responsibility. You feel that you need to be here to state your position, and I really, I appreciate that. I appreciate your effort in that regard. So please don't think we're not listening or we don't hear you if we don't necessarily give you the response that you're seeking at this time. But think about it a minute. We know right now the people who live here and have lived here for a period of time in this county. We pretty much know. We know about the ordinance or mandate, whatever we choose to call it. We've seen the signage out there to wear a mask. But consider this, right now, I think most of us are aware, we have a lot of new people coming into the community right now, mainly, as I understand it, from the north. They are not necessarily familiar with what we've been doing here. So I think the ordinance serves a purpose for the new people coming in to educate them. I'm glad we still have the signs up. I'm glad we're doing the PSAs. I haven't made mine yet, but I'll make it a point to do that, because I think we want to all keep the same tone with this, and I think that's really important to do, especially given the number of people that are coming here. And as far as there not being any bite to it, that there we can't issue there's no penalty or no citation issued. I believe the question came up at a previous meeting, and there never were any citations issued anyway. So, I look at it as more of if you are not in agreement with it, you are in effect a conscientious objector. And I'm not telling anyone to disobey this ordinance, but I don't see a lack of citation as being a huge handicap to having it in place. I think it's more of an instruction, a guideline, a request of the community to follow this. And if you can bear with us, part of the ordinance, and this is stated here, and this is our responsibility. We have a larger responsibility. It says here the protection, and this is within the ordinance. The protection of the safety and welfare of the public is inherent in the role of local government. And that was a ruling made by a judge in one of the cases related to this matter. So that being said, I am in favor of continuing at this point. 6 months seems a little over long to me. I agree, Commissioner O'Brien, that we don't want to keep bringing this back at short intervals, because I think it's it's upsetting to a lot of people and on both sides of the matter. And unfortunately, it looks like the vaccine schedule is going to take several months, and we've discussed that, and unless there's new information, Mr. County Administrator, because we're going to be discussing that next or shortly on the agenda, and I'm not expecting any radically new information. We know that we're going to go several months on this. So I'm willing to increase the length of it. I think 6 months might be a bit over long, though, given that we do have, potentially half of the people against this, and considering also the chair's point that this is largely, well, he didn't say guideline, but we don't, it has no teeth to it. I would consider, say 4 months. Do it in 4 months. Would that be acceptable? Could we discuss that? It's a compromise.
Certainly,
Commissioner.
Commissioner Moss, I appreciate that. We were at 2,000 vaccinations. Now this week we only had 1,000. So I think we're going to inoculate the 65 and older population in 6 months is probably not going to happen by then either. And we don't know where our second shots are or where they're coming from. So it could be much, much longer. I do appreciate the offer of a compromise position, but I think I'm still going to see where my 6 months goes and go with that. But thank you for your consideration.
Commissioner Ammon.
I would add, and Counselor, help me with this if you would, that we could, in 4 months, if things are going great, numbers are way down, and we don't need any type of ordinance with this, we can always come back and rescind it through a public notice and public hearing again, right?
Certainly. The board has every right to have, for instance, what I've heard is either 6 months or 4 months, and then in some interim period, if we have new data, new information, certainly either staff or the board could bring an item that basically says, hey, I know we adopted this ordinance, but we feel right now it's appropriate to rescind it. We'd be happy to advertise for such a public hearing and then bring it back to the board for such decision.
And just like we could also do the same if we wanted to change it. If the things were really going to we could change it. We could change it. On the other side,
Absolutely.
On the other side of the coin too, right?
Absolutely, Commissioner. We could change the language. The board could change the language in a similar fashion.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, and
Can I ask a question?
once again, we do have the opportunity to bring it back. I can just, sitting here, I can count to a number greater than 3, but less than 5. And with that, most certainly we can bring something back and maybe tone it down or eliminate it.
Right. Either way, either side.
Unless you want to do that today. I mean, we always have that option.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, shameless attempt.
May I just ask
Please.
a question? This is for the county administrator. Is 6 months, is that what we're talking about for, I'm sorry, it's 6 months for vaccinations? Are we still looking at that kind of a timeline? We don't need all the details, but since it's pertinent to this decision.
I believe we'll probably be at that for 6 months before we get the to the whole population to be vaccinated. Yeah, based on stuff that's coming from Washington. They were talking about June, July, and we seem to be running behind those benchmarks so far.
Okay, so 6 months is a reasonable timeline.
I believe
to
so,
to have what we say herd immunity in this area, or have enough people vaccinated that it won't be as great an issue as it currently is.
Right, I think so. And as Commissioner Urban, I think, was asking about, if it ended up being 4 months, we could always come back and shorten it to 4, or after 5 months, we could always come back and eliminate it at a public hearing sooner than 6 months.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien?
Mr. Chairman, go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the proposed ordinance with a sunset date of July 13, 2021, which is our second meeting in July.
Oh. That's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Adams. If all well understood, might have been good to choose 4th of July as Independence Day. This way everybody can have their independence again. Just a shot.
Well, the 6th would still be after it anyway, so.
Yeah, but we could maybe.
Would that make you happy, Commissioner?
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to convince me to go with a mandate that we cannot fully enforce.
Well, then I'll leave it on the 13th.
I have to say it's not about masks. It's not about any of the protection recommendations that have been out there. I truly believe that if it's in the people's hands, that they will do the right thing. There are jurisdictions that do not have any mandates, local jurisdictions that have removed their mandate. I happen to live in one of them, and there's a whole lot of mask wearing going on. So, and the businesses, they all have their masks intact because they can't afford to have individuals discussing the fact that somebody got COVID in their restaurant or their establishment. They are wearing masks, and they are ensuring that their public is protected by those face coverings, by social distancing. The restaurants have moved tables, there's barriers, and those that are surviving are doing the right thing. I believe that we can leave it in the hands of the people to do the right thing. After all, they're compromising their own safety. I understand the argument that they may also be encroaching upon my safety. If I choose to wear a mask, I'm choosing to wear a mask, and I also social distance. One of the individuals said, we touch everything. It's so true. Everything we touch can be contaminated. And there is no evidence that suggests that the mask, as opposed to touching, opposed to any other contact, has been proven to be the silver bullet to prevent the spread of the virus. So the late approach is most certainly recommended. And again, all that we've all said, or some of us have said in PSAs and other avenues and discussion, are appropriate. And once again, we're looking at the CDC, who has changed their thought process a few times, and we're responding to that. To make a mandate, I can't see a mandate if I can't tell you must follow the mandate. Thank you. Anything further? We have a motion by Commissioner Bryan, seconded by Commissioner Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion passes 4-1 with myself dissenting. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the miscellaneous budget amendment, 005, and we'll have a quick presentation.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Kristen Daniels, Budget Director.
Thank you,
before
Kristen.
Today is Budget Amendment number 5. This budget amendment uses cash balances to fund the CIE that was approved in December, as well as projects that need to be rolled over into the current fiscal year and some unanticipated expenses we didn't account for when the budget was originally formulated. So, per Florida Statute 129.062F, whenever we amend the budget utilizing cash, we need to have a public hearing. So today, staff recommends that after the public hearing, the Board of County Commissioners approve the resolution amending the fiscal year 2021 budget, and I am available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of
Yeah, just
Daniels?
a question, Dylan. So this morning on consent, there's 2 budget amendments. And wasn't that cash moving between buckets, or how does this make it cash?
Actually, when,
Probably
oh, I'll let,
Okay, Kristen, I'm sorry.
So the answer is no, those were not taken from cash. So those budget amendments were, the revenue source was either a grant, and we don't budget for grants because they're unanticipated. So it was a grant revenue source or a reserve for contingency, which we plan in the budget, and then we take from that. So we didn't actually use any cash for those budget amendments. This budget amendment is strictly taking from cash that was not programmed in the budget.
Okay. Learn something new every day. Move staff recommendation.
Like to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We know that something's coming along the pike, but we need to open up the public hearing. Is there anything further from the commissioners? At this point, we will open up the public hearing if anybody has any input regarding this change. Good morning.
Deborah Cooney, resident, taxpayer, voter in Indian River County, and also a candidate for sheriff in 2020 and 2024.
Ma'am, there's no political statements.
I recommend, I'm identifying myself. I recommend that before the board approves any budget amendments or any budget items at all, that the board should require the folks that are being funded, now whether that be employees of the county or constitutional offices, the board should require them to obey the law. I think that's a reasonable request, and I think most people in the county would agree with me on that. And now you might say, oh, well, we didn't know that they weren't obeying the law. Well, that's because you did not read the things that I sent you. You know,
Ms. Cooney, we're not going down the direction of your issue with your lawsuit with the sheriff. Please talk about the budget items.
Am I being denied the opportunity to speak?
You're not being denied. We keep it germane to the decision that's being made today.
Yes, and I am addressing the budget. So I still think that they, and I think I speak on behalf of really most of the county. The only people I don't speak on behalf of are the drug dealers that have taken over our sheriff's department.
Ms. Cooney, once again.
There are 7 budget items on here, on this list of budget to be approved under the budget. I recommend that you keep your comments to any of the 7 items on here for your public commentary. Thank you very much.
Okay, do I have the opportunity to speak, or have I just been interrupted out of it?
You do not have the right to speak in this public hearing on items that are not relevant to this public hearing or are outside the topic of this public hearing.
Okay, we are talking about the budget, correct?
No, we were actually specifically talking about a budget amendment pertaining to 7 specific budget amendment issues.
Okay. That my comment on the budget is that the people being funded need to obey the law. Now, granted that we don't have any law enforcement in our county at all. Now, as sheriff, I would certainly correct that, but apparently I did not win. We're not sure about that, but that's what they say anyway. So I still think it should be tied to obedience to law. I think every budget item should be tied to obedience to law. So when you look at, so we talked about the sheriff already. When you look
Cooney,
at funding,
there are 7 items on here.
Okay.
Let me tell you. One pertains to the capital improvement element. One deals with various projects that are budgeted that need to be rolled over. One needs to be with the tax collector and the Department of Revenue. One deals with the Gifford Gardens project. One deals with utility and stormwater drainage repairs. One deals with the Senior Resources Association. And one deals with something that is deemed the Endpoint Protection, Extended Point Detection and Response System. And those issues are what you can talk about. I'm not going to hear another item about the sheriff's office, or we will ask you to step away from the podium.
Yes, funding for the sheriff's office.
Ms. Cooney.
You're done.
You're done.
Okay, I'm
Okay, Ms. Cooney, thank you very much for your input. We appreciate your unique perspective. Thank you so much. No, Ms. Cooney, please sit down. Ms. Cooney, please find yourself a seat. Thank you. Thank you. I think we gave you tremendous latitude. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in this public hearing regarding these 7 items under consideration? Seeing none, we'll now close the public hearing. Commissioners,
New staff recommendation.
second. Oh,
Go for it. No,
That-
you're good.
You got it.
You're
I was
good.
gonna do it. I just
you're going to throw the flag?
You got it.
All right, appreciate it. Upon motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by myself, with an obvious third and fourth coming along the pikes, is any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you all. I appreciate everybody for their input. Yes. Next item is County Administrative Matters, which is going to be Jason Brown providing an update regarding the COVID-19 vaccinations.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Just providing a brief update on the vaccination efforts. So starting out, as we discussed, and as you know, the Governor's Executive Order 20-315 determines the folks that can receive vaccines right now. Those are 3 groups, essentially: long-term care facilities, residents and staff, healthcare personnel with direct patient contact, and persons age 65 of age and older. If you will, you'll see that's highlighted in red there, the 65 and older, because that is kind of the lane that we are working with, along with our partners at the Department of Health, as well as others, to do the long-term care facilities. Staff and residents are being done by Walgreens and CVS, with some supplement from the state, and then healthcare personnel. The hospital's handling that. I think the health department is involved in that effort as well, but not as much involvement here from the county, other than, again, coordinating, helping with logistics and resources as necessary. So there we are again. We've got the 48,000 permanent residents that are 65 and older, several thousand more that are snowbirds and part-term residents and visitors. This week, unfortunately, due to forces outside of our control, some of that seems to be maybe diversion to maybe the Publix program. We are able to vaccinate 1,000 people this week, down from about 2,000 last week. So we were on a nice trend there. When I brought this to you last week, we went from 500 to 1,300 to 2,000. Now we've dropped down to 1,000. We have a shortened week because of the Martin Luther King holiday. However, the limitation is due to the vaccines. And with that, the state report on the vaccines, this was as of Friday. There were 5,777 people had received their first dose. I think as of yesterday, it was about 7,300. So that is a little under, that's about 4.6% of our total population that had been vaccinated as of the report yesterday. Next, we have the kind of the daily totals in the blue there, and the cumulative in the yellowish, orangish color, whatever that's called. So this is our progress so far. Again, our goal is to get vaccines in arms, and we are getting the vaccines out that the health department has received delivered from the state. Unfortunately, we're not able to know beyond the next week what we are getting, and I would say that the same holds true for the state. My understanding is the state does not know what they're getting beyond the next week. So last week, the board gave staff some direction to look at establishing a wait list, as we had received many comments about the process. So here's what we have done beginning at 4:30 on Tuesday afternoon. Yesterday we had our Tuesday afternoon last week, the day of the commission meeting, we had the first meeting demo of a system that would do the things that we would like to do for a wait list. There are various different options. We'd like to make sure that there is the ability to manage the wait list. I believe that when we establish a wait list, it will be rather large. St. Lucie County, I saw some reports that they have 58,000 people on their wait list. That is kind of in line. They're about 2.5 times our size. That would equate to about 20,000 people on our wait list. So we want to make sure, I believe we want to make sure we have a system that can manage that wait list, that can communicate with folks, can send them emails, can send text messages, can do robocalls to the extent that someone's not texting and doing smartphones and all that stuff, to advise folks of when, how the line is moving, when their appointment is coming up. Ability to schedule the second appointments in the same manner, and the ability to document and track those folks that got the first vaccine to manage them getting their second vaccine. And we want to be able to implement it pretty rapidly. So we looked at several solutions. Next slide, if you could. So the first one is Coastal Cloud, working on a Salesforce platform. They would have to do some custom application for us. The cost is approximately $300,000, and they're telling us 4 to 6 weeks. We do not recommend that. That 4:30 meeting was this CDR McGuire, which is also on a Salesforce platform. And Salesforce, they are used a lot for customer service and support for those types of things. So that's why you'll see that quite a bit. They're talking about a 7 to 10 day timeline for the initial capability. I will say that they did not, Orange County is using them. Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco implemented, I believe, last week on this. They do not currently have a wait list capability, and we requested that, and they said that would take some time to develop that. So that 7 to 10 days would be without a wait list. We do not recommend that option at this time. VacTrax, again, 4 to 6 weeks. Would have to be customized. We do not recommend that option. Next are two that are more feasible that could be recommended. The first is Luminaire Inoculate. That is an existing software. They have been supporting numerous vaccine testing sites earlier in this pandemic. I will note their CEO is a medical doctor as well. They have told us a 3 to 7 day timeline to implement. It's a $150,000 cost for that. Qualtrics was another option that was evaluated. That's a 7 to 10 day timeline, $150,000 to $200,000 cost. They are a recommended solution as well. So one of those two, the Luminaire or Qualtrics, my recommendation would be the Luminaire option if we were to move forward. However, there is something that makes this decision more complicated, and that is that the Florida Department of Emergency Management is developing and rolling out a uniform vaccine registration and administration program for use by all counties. We have been told that in order to receive state support at a vaccination site, we need to be using this Share Care system. So I wish I could tell you exactly when that would be rolled out here. They're rolling that out in different counties at different times. We have registered for the training and to be put on the list for training and implementation of such an solution. I don't have great detail here, but I do not believe it currently has a wait list component. I think that's something that they might implement going forward. I could see in my perfect world, I'm not saying that this is something that exists, but I think if there were a statewide system, that would prevent some of this cross-county issues that you have with people from Palm Beach County. I don't know that it would do that, but it would seem like you wouldn't be able to register in 5 different counties, as we're hearing is happening with some folks, to have the vaccine tourism that's happening in an intrastate basis anyway. So that would be something that would reduce that. So basically, the state is telling us that they are wanting us to utilize this system, and that if we don't utilize this system, we would not receive state support for our vaccination sites and efforts, which they are intending to roll out as we go forward, and hopefully have a higher level of vaccination deliveries. Could be useful to have that state support. So staff would recommend that we implement the state solution, the share care that they are pushing down from Tallahassee. However, I do know we did get direction on a wait list, and it is unknown how soon this option would provide a wait list. We'll say we had our appointments again filled up at this morning. We opened those at 9:30. By 10:30, all of the slots via online and telephone were filled. But just want to kind of get further direction from the board on what you would like us to do. Any of those options we're not in it. We're outside of a bid situation in order to get something implemented quickly. Significant cost. I am concerned about committing to $150,000 for something that the state could tell us in 2 weeks to stop using. So with that, staff's recommendation is to continue to coordinate with the state on the share care system, but certainly am open to a policy decision from the board for further direction on which way you would like for staff to go. And with that, I'm available for any questions on the vaccination effort overall, and on this specific issue in particular.
Before we have comments, I just wanted to address one thing. Are you suggesting that it took an hour before we were fully booked this morning?
We were fully booked online and over the phone system within the hour.
Within the hour, as
The
opposed...
online system does fill up
Quickly.
than that.
So between, it just is encouraging that between this period and the initial rollout, where we were booked out in 3 minutes, or booked out in 7 minutes, or booked out in 6 minutes, it now took an hour. Is that my interpretation?
The phone system takes longer because our folks are on the phone with people, and they are basically filling that in, so it just takes a little longer for that process. I've been up here, so I haven't heard updates on how that went very well. Likely the phone lines become overwhelmed as well as because we have a limited number of people that can take the calls. But it does take a little bit longer for the phone process to fill up.
And you did double up the queuing availability as far as open lines and staffing to ensure that we had ample contact.
Yes, we filled up to the extent that we could. We had more folks taking calls, and we had more lines ready to go this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just so you know, when you get to your office and check your email, you'll find out that a lot of people have emailed in very frustrated again.
Yes.
And that a lot of those that tried to do it online were told things were filled within 5 minutes. So the other telephone slots took longer, but the vast majority of that 1,000 went within 5 minutes. So there's still pretty high demand. Jason, on that share care, if they don't have a waiting list, how does it work then? Is it gonna just be the same thing? They're gonna put a notice out that there's 1,000 vaccinations in Indian River County, everybody has to log on real quick? I mean, how would this work without a wait list? That would be any improvement?
You know, so I don't know. I'll say Publix, you know, who we all know is great at customer service, and they're kind of the gold standard for customer service. I went online for Publix. They don't have Indian River County yet, but they've done numerous, you know, dozens and dozens of Publix locations throughout this state. You get the same thing there. I just have to say, I pulled up their website, and they have Bay County, appointment status fully booked. Citrus County, fully booked. Collier, fully booked. Escambia, fully booked. Flagler, fully booked. Hernando, fully booked. Marion, fully booked. Okaloosa, fully booked. Santa Rosa, fully booked. St. John's, fully booked. Volusia, fully booked. Walton, fully booked. So Publix, the gold standard of customer service, has no wait list for their system. So I just want to say that this is not unique to Indian River County. I understand the frustration out there. Again, I believe it's lack of vaccines. We've got some options where we could do some wait lists, but I want to make sure we have a managed wait list, because I'm concerned if we've got 20,000 people on a wait list, we need to manage that. I'm hearing of places where we could probably implement something cheaper than these options, but then you're stuck with 20,000 people that we've got to call and tell them when they have an appointment. And when most of those people on that list don't have an appointment a month from now, I don't think they're going to be happy. So I think there are some options here. I would hope and I would push for such a solution on that share care system. I just don't know where that is, and that's what the state is pushing down, that they want us to use that share care system, and that we are not going to be able to receive their full support if we don't use that system.
What do they mean by that? What do you think, by not getting their full support?
So they can send additional resources to help staff and support a vaccination site, and that's what we're being told that they're going to do. And what we're hearing is that support would not come if we're not using the share care system.
Well, heck, they're taking resources from us now and giving them to Publix. They just opened 7 Publixes in Martin County. Those are vaccinations that we could be doing through the health department. I mean, I'm all for providing more opportunities for people to get vaccinated, but not when it takes vaccines out of the arms of our people. It's very frustrating. I'm very frustrated. I don't even know how to express that in a professional manner, so I will stop.
And I understand that. In the perfect world, I think having Publixes out there doing it is a good thing, but in addition to being able to give us all the vaccines we can give, I think we need to have, in order to maximize this, it needs to be us, it needs to be other healthcare providers, you know, like, which we've been working, the health department's been working with, Treasure Coast Community Health, the hospitals, the CVS's, the Walgreens. At some point, I believe that would, you know, in this process, everybody that can give shots will be giving shots, and that's where we need to be. We're not there yet, and unfortunately, I think, to Commissioner Adams' point, is they're rolling vaccines out to Publix, which is great, but that's costing us vaccines right now. Hopefully, they'd be able to give us all the vaccines we can give and supply all of the Publixes with vaccines.
That would be ideal.
Right. The bottom line is, yeah, we want, like you said, we want everybody that has the ability to, and the certification to give a shot, whether it's doctors' offices, CVS, Walgreens, you know, the pharmacists at Publix, everybody, absolutely. But yeah, we're not there yet. Does the 150? I want you to just maybe describe in real brief the software that y'all did look at. And would the 150,000 we got CARES Act money would pay for that?
We could utilize CARES Act dollars for that.
Can you explain to me a little bit about what it does? Because I don't know. I'm not getting a real warm fuzzy feeling about the state, and I'm with Commissioner Adams. I'm just frustrated beyond my means.
Yes, understood. So, basically what it would do is you could have pre-registration. So people would be able to be pre-registered. That would be putting them on the wait list, basically. Hey, you're all on the wait list. You don't have an appointment yet, but we'll be in touch. It could manage that queue. So let's say we've got 20,000 people on the wait list. We've got 2,000 vaccines. We could pick 2,000 of them off of the list, and then it would reach out to them and send them a text, email, or robocall saying you can book an appointment, and then they would be able to book their appointment along with only the other 1,999 people that can book an appointment that week or whatever we're doing. It would have a for the cell phone folks would have a QR code that they can go and show and validate that when they show up at the vaccination site. It would integrate with Florida Shots, which is something that's important, so that because all of this has to be entered within Florida Shots within a certain timeline, and would be able to manage those second appointments, would be able to set those second appointments up with those same folks. Say, okay, you've had your first vaccine, so now we're ready to book your second vaccination, and would be able to support all that in a more automated fashion than we're doing now. God bless them, the health department folks are having to go through some manual processes right now to make sure everything's ready to go in Florida Shots. If we could have something that automates that system a little more, that would be helpful. And those would be, I think we've got those two solutions, and that could accomplish that.
Well, Jason, so if we were to go in that direction, and you could use COVID funding for this process, which would be approximately $150,000, how long would it take for the procurement of this process to be intact?
So first of all, I would need approval from the board because I don't have authority to go buy a $200,000 piece of software without a bid. We've gone through a process to evaluate these folks. So I would need board approval to do that with one of these two providers. Hearing 3 to 7 and 7 to 10 days, I think a week to a week and a half is what we would need to plan for to have that system up and running, so that we could provide the functionality that we want for our residents.
Well, coupled with all of the community concern and the frustration, and in addition, the fact that we do have an element of state of emergency, and you have great discretion, and we've given you latitude for the selection process for medical practitioners. I believe that we could do the same today and get that ball rolling as swiftly as possible, so we can have a very positive wait system and appointment system intact as early as 2 weeks away. And that would be most appropriate. So I'm willing to take the risk and entertain that motion from my esteemed colleagues to give you that element of support and direction, and go forward, sir.
I would like to add that I think we had this discussion last week about, people want the feeling that they've been recognized, or they're on a wait list.
Yes.
There's some type of that we're doing something, because they actually, even though I think I remarked last week that you guys are working 24/7 on this thing, and I admire that, and I just think it's just unbelievable the good things we're doing, but the public doesn't realize what we're going through, and I think that we owe it to them, and I think that any River County can rise up and do the right thing. If the state doesn't send us people to give shots, hell, I'll renew my paramedic license and I'll go out there and give shots, and along with a lot of other people that are probably capable of doing it.
So up on that.
I would agree with Commissioner Fleischer. I think we need to, I don't know, my thing with the state, waiting on the state to do something and the bureaucracy like that, and it's really, maybe it's not their fault because it's affecting every county and every citizen in the state of Florida. I think if we kind of rolling around, I think we'd be better off in the long run. I just don't get that warm fuzzy feeling that this thing, the software with the state's gonna happen right away. It's gonna be a great thing and everybody's gonna be happy with it. I just have my doubts. So I kind of concur with Commissioner Fleischer on this, that let's spend CARES Act money and let's move ahead based on your recommendation and let you have the latitude to make this thing work out and see what you think. But if you need me to make a motion to authorize you to spend $150,000, I'll be glad to do so.
Was that your motion?
That can be my motion, unless you want me to rephrase it in plain English.
In order to, well, I
maybe
would like
200,
to
yeah.
include, if it's your will, to direct the county administrator to go forward, and he has the full authorization in the selection process and funding.
I will make that motion that we allow the county administrator to spend up to $150,000 on software based on his recommendation and expertise of staff as to what they feel is best, and move forward on this. But I mean, I would like to have my fellow commissioners discuss that.
Well, I'm
also,
going to
but
second that
would be my
motion so we can get that on a roll, and now we'll hear from our fellow commissioners.
If I
Thank.
I just want to clarify the motion.
Okay.
So as I understand it, the first item would be waive bid requirements. Second item, do you want to give direction to Jason mentioned there were two companies, I think, that you had recommended. Do you want to give direction to Jason as to go with the bidder and then the second one if that doesn't work out, just so we've got clear direction on our end?
I would be glad to leave that up to his discretion.
And the second, so the same. This is an emergent matter. We have a public that is truly wanting to know where they stand in the shots into arms. And if we wait for the state to roll out their system, this may be a lengthy period of time. Each day that we go on in the manner in which we're going is adding to more frustration and angst within the community. Let's get the ball rolling.
And then was there a dollar number?
Yeah, and then the dollar number, the number two option says 150,000 to 200,000. So just if there's that leeway there, because I will say, my first choice would be the one that's 150,000, but I will say these folks are also very busy right now because we're not the only county looking for such a solution. So just a little leeway on that, if we get that direction.
My motion to make it up to 200,000.
Okay, thank you.
Second, so amended.
The frustration level is sky high. We all know that. We've all felt it. The commission, the community, we're all well aware of that. My concern is with this, we can have the perfect distribution system. We can leave the state in the dust, so to speak, but the state controls the supply. So what happens when you have the perfect distribution system and still have no supply? And I'm going to ask the county administrator that question. Do we have any indication of what the supply will be? Or I see Ms. Hawker present. Can we discuss that?
Yeah, it's a great question because, again, the vaccines are we as I sat here last week, I
We
thought
have
we
nothing to distribute. That's
Right.
the problem, and that'll be even worse.
Right. So I defer to Miranda regarding what those future shipments look like. Right now we only know what's coming a week out. I don't know that they would withhold vaccines from us if we went with another system. But there is some other support that my understanding is that we might not receive. So I don't know what Miranda, if she has any additional thoughts on that, because again, the county gets 0 vaccines. The health department is getting the vaccines, and they are working with us to distribute some of those through these mass vaccination clinics. And I think our partnership has been very good through this challenging project. But they're the ones that get them, and I really have no idea what that will look like in the future.
Commissioner Moss, we find out, we get the call through the health department to the county administrator on Tuesday. how much vaccine will be distributed? Again, this is not a distribution system. People are experiencing high anxiety, not being able to get in. We're all receiving the calls.
I'm in favor of it, so there's no,
No, but
there's no need
but
to
you're
sell me.
stating you
I'm in
have,
favor of
you
it,
said
but-
you had a concern.
Yeah, we're gonna
that
have the
we're
perfect
going-
system to distribute, and we're gonna have nothing to
It's
distribute.
not a
That's-
distribution
that's what-
system, and it's not a perfect system. So
Well, it is
I'm-
a distribution system. It's a notification system. You're calling people in for an
Right,
appointment.
but it's
So
not.
you're
So
distributing.
there's no supply and demand concern. This is
What if
just-
you have nothing to distribute? That's what I'm asking. Well, like we just saw this week,
That
we have
doesn't
only,
enter
we have
into the
only
equation.
1,000.
The equation
and we
is
had hoped it would be
notification
2,000.
to ensure that people know that they are in the queue, they will be getting it. It gives them direction.
I understand
It's
that,
not
but I
giving
think
them
there'll be
the vaccine, it's not giving them a date and time certain until we have the supply.
I understand that. But
It's a
that's,
queuing system, that's all it is.
right, but I think that's what the county administrator, and by the way, I'm in favor of this. So there's, I understand
No, I'm
the
not
level of
debating.
frustration, yeah, well, there's no debate. If we have to spend the money, we will. But what I'm asking is, I hope that it doesn't become a source of false hope, because yes, you can register, and then we'll have this list where we can call back, but what if we have nothing to offer? I'm concerned about what we saw today, that there were only 1,000, and, you know, the number's going down. And that was pointed out earlier. That's a real source of concern. And, you know, all kinds of politics go on. We all know that. So, yes, we can say, the heck with the state, and who know, I don't know what kind of reverberations that has, and it probably would never be stated anyway. But that's, you know, something to consider. That's why I thought maybe we could just ask Ms. Hawker if there's anything new on that, or are we still going day to day, week to week? Is there any hope of that situation changing with regard to vaccine supplies?
So thank you for the opportunity to speak. What I can tell you is we are in a very similar situation to what we were last week, in that the vaccine supply is still very limited. We're getting 975 doses this week, and that is it. So what I can tell you in terms of the shift from the state is that the state is looking to establish more state-supported sites throughout the counties, which is what Mr. Brown had spoken about. My concern is that using a separate system from what the Division of Emergency Management has now is providing the counties, that system allows me a seamless integration with the Florida shots, which right now for every vaccination clinic I do, those 500 each day, 1,500 over a week, I have clerks back at the health department entering each and every one of those vaccines into our system. I'm paying overtime for those individuals to be able to do that. Thank God for the partnership with our county. But it's laborious. And so I do think that you hit upon a very good point, which I also expressed concerns about last week. We just don't have the supply right now. I know it is very difficult for people to be patient. We have had about 8,000 people, as I checked this morning, being vaccinated in our county, so that number is going up. And we're dedicated to getting those doses back into our community. What I've heard from my counterparts in other counties who have had these wait lists of 50,000 and 40,000 people is that is a tremendous amount to maintain, because people are always wondering when their turn is coming. And I don't have an answer to that. But what I can tell people out there, and I can tell all of you, is that between emergency management, Jason Brown, County Health Department, as well as our healthcare partners out there, we're dedicated to getting that vaccine out as soon as we can. But I do not have an idea on when we are getting more vaccine, nor do I have assurances. But as Jason said, ideally, and that is the vision from the state, is that we'll have more and more providers giving vaccine out as months go by and as weeks go by, but we are not at that point yet at this point. And I don't have an easy answer to this problem, and there isn't an easy fix to it, but what I can tell you is we're committed to getting that vaccine out as soon as we can.
Scary. Thank you. Commissioner Adams?
Yes, I have a question. The system that you're talking about, and I don't know if this is Jason or Miranda or somebody else, but the system that you have looked at, Jason, is that something that can be integrated with the state system once the state gets their system up and running? Because at this point, we don't have a timeline for their system either.
I don't know that it will interface with ShareCare. I believe what we've asked for is something that can be, where the shots can be easily uploaded into Florida Shots, which is the system that they're having to manually kind of key those into right now. I think we can accomplish that. As far as coordinating with ShareCare, I have no idea. I don't know. We just have limited information. I have limited information on the ShareCare system. I don't know if Miranda has any more.
So the ShareCare system is out there for counties who will be designated as a state-supported site. And given that our site is a partnership between the Division of Emergency Services and the County Health Department, our site is considered a state-supported site at the fairgrounds. And so when we get vaccine in the coming weeks, that will be designated towards that state-supported site. And the ShareCare system is what we've been directed, and I can't speak for Chief Stone, but that's what we've been directed to use at those state-supported sites, from my understanding.
So basically the state's telling us, they're not telling us we can't use another system. They're telling us we also have to use their system. We could have two systems, correct?
So the difficulty will be, I'm sorry, Jason, I don't mean to speak before you.
I think they'll want us to transition onto the ShareCare system, and I don't know if we can interface seamlessly with ShareCare. I think we would have a system in place that would. One of the things that the state is looking at is these appointments and wait lists that have been put out there. They're wanting to know what the pipeline is to know when they can get various counties onto the ShareCare system is what I'm hearing. So they're wanting to basically move it all the way over to ShareCare.
If they move everything to ShareCare, is there any discussion at that point about limiting vaccinations to county residents? Because right now, my understanding from you at our last discussion, Miranda, was that the state is allocating vaccinations to counties based on their population. But if I have people from Brevard and St. Lucie County availing themselves of Indian River County's vaccinations that have been allotted to us based on our population, it just doesn't seem like a good strategy. Or if I have Indian River County residents going to Okeechobee and availing themselves of the less amount of vaccines that they're getting because their population is less than us. So is there any discussion with this system about either they send us all the same amount and let everybody go wherever they want, or if they are gonna allocate it by population, they need to control that in some manner. So is there any discussion about that?
So I do hear what you're saying, Commissioner Adams, but they have not deviated from that model in terms of we do have to give vaccine to those people that present at our site. Now, what we are able to do is if somebody is coming from another country just to come here to be vaccinated, we are able to turn those individuals away. But I do hope that as more and more counties have a state-supported site or have a regular site for vaccination, that hopefully that practice of people coming from other sites will decrease as we move forward.
Does the ShareCare system provide some kind of automation for you uploading stuff into the SHOT system? Because I would think in the day and age of online electronic medical records, hand inputting that is
labor.
Either you don't, beyond labor intensive, it just seems like that's outdated technologically.
Very difficult for us to be doing that in addition to supporting the missions of case investigation and contact tracing as well as mass vaccination. And mass vaccination is what's going to get us out of this pandemic at this point. And what I can tell you is the idea of having seamless integration with Florida Shots, where I don't have to do that shots entry and burden my people with that, is a beautiful thing.
So does it do that or not?
Yes. The shared care system does do that. Sorry, I got caught up in my own excitement about not having to enter that. But honestly, yes, the shared care system does do that.
Aren't there other ways to not have to enter those by hand right now? I mean, I understand that other doctors' practices that utilize that system can electronically do stuff like that and not.
So
It seems like the health department is just making it a little bit more difficult on yourself.
So what I can tell you is every single person that is given COVID vaccine at this point has to register both in Florida Shots and register in the Vaccine for Adults program, as well as vaccines for children. So every single person has to enter those into Florida Shots within 24 hours. There are two methods by which that can happen. So someone can directly enter that into the system on Florida Shots, or you can enter that into a spreadsheet and then upload that into the Florida Shot systems. Those are the two mechanisms by which to do that at this point.
And then my last question is, when people have questions about the process, where do you want us to direct them to call? Because I'm getting a lot of emails and phone calls to the office where people are trying to call and get information from the health department, and they're unable to either get information or get anybody on the phone. So what number would you like us to give out to answer those questions?
So what kind of information on the process are you looking for?
Just about second shots, about what shots are being given, about where they can get testing, about just any number of things. But we are getting a large portion of the population that are saying they are unable to get anybody at the health department. So if you guys don't want us directing them there, I just need to know where to direct them, because that provides, we don't have those kinds of answers that you guys have.
So we're answering every phone call that we can. And obviously, just as you are getting a lot of phone calls, we are getting the same amount of phone calls. In terms of the process, when we're sending information out about second shots, or we're giving information out on the vaccination clinics, we're sending that through Alert Indian River. People are welcome to call the health department, but I also know that the Emergency Operations Center has the Emergency Information Center. Those operators are up and running, and they're able to answer some of those questions as well. What we've said on the second shots is our second shots that are scheduled happen at 21 days for Pfizer or 28 days for Moderna. There is no maximum interval by which you would have to repeat that first dose. What that means is we want to do that second dose right around that 21 day and that 28 days, but it may not be exactly on that day. I also don't know when I'll be getting vaccine for those second shots. I don't have any information on that yet at this point. So as we get the vaccine in to be able to do that, we will schedule those clinics. I can't schedule them ahead of time before I know I have vaccine.
So it would probably be very helpful because that's different than what we were originally told. What we were originally told was that the second vaccine would come at 21 or 28 days, that was kind of guaranteed. So it sounds like that's changed. So if that has changed, it would be very helpful in some way to keep us updated on that, or put it on the health department's website, or coordinate with the county to put it on our website, because I don't want us giving out wrong information and making the situation worse. And right now, we're having as much difficulty getting the proper information to give out to the public as the public is having trying to get that information to. And it just puts us all in a very bad position of spreading misinformation or disinformation or false information that makes the whole process much more angst-ridden than what it already is.
So, and I do hear you. We very well may get the second dose on time. But what I'm saying is I can't guarantee that. I have been told that we will get the second dose.
Where does it come from exactly?
It comes as a shipment from the state.
Well, from what in the state? From which agency in the state?
It's that those shipments are coming from the Department of Health as a direction from the governor.
Okay.
What's going
So it's coming from Tallahassee, from the Department of Health in Tallahassee, to you. That's how it works. Okay. Thank you for that.
But I do think, Commissioner Adams, we can also send out and craft a message on the second dose, because that is, I do know we are getting an awful lot of questions on that, but you also hear what I'm saying. And yes, we have been told we're going to get the vaccine for the second dose, but what I'm telling you is I don't have information on when that's going to be shipped now at this point.
May I ask one more question? And this is for the county administrator. We have alertindianriver.com, and when last I checked, we had almost 40,000 people signed up, and I don't know, I'm assuming the number's even greater now. The crux of the problem is that we're having this weekly mad scramble, which is, it's just atrocious. I mean, I agree with everyone here. We can't continue. Is there some way that we can use that information, alertindianriver.com? Does that go into a database? Can you, I mean, if it does, or if it could, because it's already been captured, then it's, I think, not a complicated matter to have a data query whereby you could select every 10th number, every 10th name, or, however you want to do it, but you could randomize it. In effect, you randomize the information you have and contact only the people for, who would use the whatever doses we've received that week. So we can just, remember, I think the end goal here is we want to eliminate that mad scramble. I mean, the end goal is to have everyone vaccinated, but we don't control that because we don't control the supply. So the only thing we control is actually notifying people. We're not even delivering it. County Commission doesn't deliver it. The health department does. So all we're trying to do is help in that regard in terms of notifying people. So if we already have this information, is there some way that we can use it through a data query and randomize it and alert only those people that would equal the number of doses that the health department has?
So, I just want to touch on the second dose. So when we do have the vaccine for the second dose and when they're due, starting really that week of the first week in February, we will be sending that information out using the technology from the Division of Emergency Services and contact only those individuals to be able to schedule that second dose. So yes, we are going to get in contact with people. And I defer the other question to you, Jason.
So on the Indian River Alert system, yes, we have something like 40,000 people. I don't know what the current number is, and it has grown quite a bit the last couple of weeks. A couple of things. One thing is we don't have ages on there, so we would be sending, we would be picking from a group of people that is of all ages, and this goes back to the us generating a list question. There are various different things we've looked at. We've looked at driver's license records, property ownership records, voter registration records. I'm hesitant to do one of those because now we're creating the list. And if somebody's not on the list, now we got a problem. So let's say, for instance, we do voter registration records. Okay, well, I'm not registered to vote, so now I'm never going to be on your list to get a vaccine. I think I don't know if that's a place we want to be. I think that's something I'd be very cautious about, us generating a list for all those people that are left off the list. You create a problem. I like the wait list option better than that, where people ask to be put on the list and we put them on the list if they're asked to be on.
Well, isn't Alert Indian River, people have asked to be on that list. It is a list in effect, I guess, or it could be. I understand what you're saying, that there are no ages captured right now. I don't know if that's something that is easily remedied to capture age.
I just think the data's not there. We'd be picking off of the list, and we'd have a list, and we're calling people and asking them if they're over 65, and if they're not over 65, pushing them aside, and then having to wait until we get to, if you're not over 65, okay, never mind. If you are over 65, well, we'll set up an appointment for you. Again, going to be very heavily manual, that we will need to, let's say we're doing 2,000 a week. we'll have to have folks working the phones the whole time, which is something we can do. But it's resource intensive to kind of get those folks set up and get those appointments set. Would be something that's a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have anybody else have any questions of Miranda?
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by, what?
We're just clarifying what's on the floor.
Clarify what's on the floor, thank you. I appreciate it. We have a motion by Commissioner Ehrman, seconded by myself. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Hold on. We are voting on it, but I will warn you, Ms. Cooney, it needs this, whatever public comments you have on this item that the board is voting on need to pertain to the distribution of voluntary vaccines.
It absolutely pertains to the COVID vaccine. Yes.
Thank you.
Just as my comments on the masks pertained exactly to the masks. The vaccines are a controversial issue, and I would question whether the county should be involved in vaccine distribution at all. Given the fact that that vaccines are so controversial, there have been thousands of injuries reported caused by vaccines. In fact, one doctor died of the COVID-19 vaccine in Miami Beach. He was a doctor, and he's dead from the COVID vaccine, and this happened very recently. So I would really start questioning it. And even if we're not using county taxpayer money, even if we're getting the CARES Act money from the federal government to finance the whole distribution, and I don't know if that is the case or not, but even if it is, that CARES Act money could be better spent helping residents of Indian River County whose jobs and whose businesses have been impacted, not by the virus, but by the shutdown, by this whole shutdown. Oh my gosh, there's a virus, now we need to shut everything down. It was that particular response that destroyed the businesses. It wasn't the virus itself. So I think we need to rethink the vaccine issue in light of $4 billion in the U.S. government has paid to compensate certain individuals because they were injured by vaccines, and the fact that the manufacturers have absolutely zero liability. Guess what? The manufacturers and the doctors and the hospitals have zero liability for vaccine injuries, but there's nothing saying that the county cannot be held liable for the vaccine injuries. That issue was not part of the Vaccine Act because nobody ever thought that counties would even get involved in vaccine distribution. So I think the whole idea of bringing the county into the distribution of the vaccine is a very bad idea, and it doesn't have as much public support as you might think. So thank you very much for considering that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, under comments, I'm probably going to be voting against this. I don't think anybody wants to have a system in place more than me, but I don't want us to get in a situation where we're butting heads with the state because they control the strings in my mind. And my fear is if we don't go with their system, I'm not so worried if they don't send us personnel, but if they start cutting our vaccines, then that to me is a huge concern. And I don't want to be on the wrong side of the state on something like this. So those are just my thoughts.
I appreciate your stance, sir.
Can I add to that, Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner, yeah.
What do you say? I don't disagree, and that's a risk. I think that's a risk that I'm willing to take. I mean, and you were there, you asked him, the governor said, if you're getting more shots in the arm, or we can get more shots in the arm over this system versus the state system, then we've done our job. But
well, he said that,
I hear
then we
you
got
loud and
cut
clear, and I don't
50%.
disagree with you. There is a risk here, but I just think we have to get moving, and for us to wait on the state and is just terrifies me, I guess.
And Commissioner, I'm not concerned about us having to try to extrapolate the information and get it into a system that the state may deem mandatory. I don't believe we're butting heads. We're taking action, and people need to know where they stand, when to get the shot. So I think that it's money well spent to ensure, contrary to what some have said, there is a tremendous demand for the shot. There are people wanting to come from the colder climates to come down here to lease houses. There's all sorts of organized efforts to get the vaccine. More people want it than don't want it, and there's been a tremendous shift in concern in getting the shot in the arm. And actually, there's more concern about the second shot. So if we can get an organized weight system intact, even if we have to ditch the system, we're moving forward to get shots in the arm and giving people direction on when they expect that shot in the arm.
Well, I hope it doesn't turn into any kind of false promise, and I'm still very concerned about the supply side, which we don't control and can't.
This decision has nothing to do with the supply. This has to do with letting people know that they're going to get the shot when we receive the vaccine, and they'll be able to get in a queuing system. That's the main concern. That's what this is all about. It's facilitation to the public in which we serve.
I'm sorry, not to belabor this, but and I maybe already asked this question, but I'm so frustrated I can't remember the answer. Miranda or Jason, is there a time frame on the share care implementation? That answer was no, we don't really know. I'm sorry.
Miranda may know better. Our staff signed up for, the training when it's available, but I don't know where, they're not doing all 67 counties at once. There's an order, and I don't know what that is. Maybe Miranda has better info than I.
They're currently working on the rollout plan for that, and hopefully we'll have that soon.
Do you anticipate having a rollout plan this week?
I can't tell you that.
Thank you.
But what I can tell you is that as they're working on standing up these sites statewide, that they are aggressively working towards distributing that to the counties.
Anybody have anything else further? All in favor?
Do you need me to restate it, Councilman?
I was just going to say.
If you choose, let's just, yeah, go ahead.
So it's.
I make a
we're
motion to
gonna waive
authorize the county administrator to use CARES Act funds up to $200,000 to procure a software computer system to allow any River County residents to establish an appointment / get on a list for the COVID vaccine shots, should they wish.
Right, and that incorporates waiving the bid requirements.
And waiving the bid requirement.
Thank you.
Up to $200,000.
Up to 200,000, yes.
So seconded?
But I just wanted to, Commissioner Adams' question, I got a text from Tad saying 3 weeks for the state system, I believe. So that's the timeline we're getting.
Is that if we're, I'm sorry, is that if we're the targeted county, knowing that there's 67 counties, or is that the entire state?
My belief is that that's what's projected for us.
For us.
Okay, so if we're projected, according to TAD, to have the share care system implemented or be required to sign up for it within the next 3 weeks, when is our next meeting? Our next meeting, we don't have a meeting next week. We have a meeting the
February 2nd.
February 2nd, so that's 2 weeks from today. Again, am so frustrated. I'm having a hard time expressing myself professionally, but I'm I have the same concerns that Commissioner Bryan does about retribution, not retribution, that's probably again, improper term. Pushback from the state. I would be willing to give them the 2 weeks until our next meeting to see if they can put some more definitive plans in place for the share care system and revisit this at that point, only because it's so fast moving and I don't want to cut off our nose to spite our face, but at the same time, I don't want to keep perpetuating this angst amongst the public and amongst ourselves about how we deal with this. So I probably am not, even though I'm supportive of doing something, I feel it's probably in our best interest to give the state a little bit more time to try to figure it out. But if we don't have any more information about when this might be implemented and what this system looks like and if it's going to address our concerns, I would be very happy to revisit this motion in 2 weeks, because I'm quite sure we will have a COVID vaccine update on that agenda as well.
Yeah, and we could definitely, we can definitely push the state to say, hey, look, we're looking at going with a different system if you guys don't move us up the priority list, and see if we can get some kind of advancement.
People just can't stop. They can't continue to not give us information, and that's the biggest issue that I'm having. We can't keep having no information or changing information. I mean, for goodness sakes, make a plan and roll it out. That's what we're trying to do, and now we're being told we really shouldn't do that because they're going to have their own plan. Again, I'm willing to give them 2 weeks to try to figure it out, but at that point, like, that's my line in the sand. It's where I'm at.
Let me, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Again, I like how Commissioner Brown, I hear you loud and clear. About my idea is that that by making this motion, that give the county administrator the authority that he doesn't have come back to us if he finds that in the next few days that we need to do what I'm asking him to do. We need to secure this software, and he hasn't heard anything from state, or he heard something from the state. I think he has the ability to change his mind to let us know, hey, the state's doing this. I haven't bought it yet, but I don't want to hold him up to do this because of what you're describing about all the angst and anxiety that everybody's having about this. I think we need to give him the latitude to move ahead, to make the decision based on what's best for the county.
And I'm going to agree, it's a fast-moving target. Things are changing by the hour, not by the day, not by the week. They're changing very rapidly. And, within a couple of days, we could find out. We're not going to go in that system. In the meantime, we've lost valuable time. I think our citizens need to know where they stand and when they're going to stand. Again, the state is in complete control of the supply. We have to separate that. We have to wait for the distribution. There are some challenges, but as far as our end of the responsibility, the state is clearly directed that we are responsible to get those shots in the arm, correct? If we need to do that, I don't think that there'll be any retaliation if we begin the process to do so. And within the next couple of days, if you find out that we don't need to go in that direction, that the state is going to implement their plan, then so be it. But you need to have that in hand, and I'd like to make it happen today.
So well, just to Commissioner Ehrman's point, my thought is if you're going to do this, I would want Jason ordering that software this afternoon. And we're not going to know anything from the state in 2 or 3 days. I mean, don't even think the state's going to have an idea in 2 or 3 days. If it's the board's direction to go that way, I would, and the most optimistic one I think said 3 to 7 days. That's probably over optimistic in my mind. So I don't think Jason's going to wait till Friday to get this started, or at least that's, if you want to do this, the direction I'd give Jason is get that thing ordered this afternoon and get him working on it, and let's get that 3 to 7 days. I wouldn't want him to wait till Friday to make a decision on it. I'd say do it this afternoon. So that's just my recommendation. If you want to go this way, and I understand you want to go that way, I'm not arguing that. Right. But if you do want to go that way, I would say Jason, start this afternoon.
And if we,
I have no disagreement with that.
and if we get through this motion, then perhaps Jason get upstairs and start the process with the Office of Management and Budget. And
Well,
thank
I'm
you
gonna
very
stay with
much.
my original motion. That was my original
Yes.
motion, is go ahead and do it. But
Yes.
I mean, but if you knew something that I don't, is the county administrator, you know, I would expect you to use due discretion to say, you know, hey, maybe we need to
Let me
take
ask-
another 24 hours and look at it, even though I don't really want to do that.
Right, and that, in the, you know, I do want clarity on what you want for me. I appreciate getting latitude, but on this, it makes things challenging, or like to Commissioner O'Brien's point, I'm thinking right now that 3 to 7 days is optimistic, so I'm already, in my head, we may be looking at next Monday doing the same thing we've been doing, that everybody's mad about, because we're not gonna be able to have a system ready to go next Monday. If I push that out much further, we're gonna have 2 more weeks where we're doing this old system that doesn't have folks happy. So if we wanna get off of that, I need to march forth pretty quickly, and, you know, so clarity of direction is something that's important. If we're gonna purchase it, I need to march forth.
What Commissioner Adams or Commissioner O'Brien said, I just trust you enough to make the right decision on this stuff, but I'll stick with my original motion. Let's move forward with it then.
And I also want to add, Commissioner Adams brought up a point. We don't know, we have no clear, concise direction. You know what? We don't, and I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
And if we can go forward and get this done, because quite frankly, it sounds like there may be some may and shalls inside of the direction or decision that you're getting from the state, and we need to eliminate them, and we need to keep it with can and will, and we need to go forward. So I truly believe that it's a wise choice to, and that's why I fully support the motion. Let's get it done. I don't think there's going to be any retaliation. They're not going to say, okay, no vaccine for you. That would be a terrible mistake. I don't think that that's going to happen if we choose to go another system. If we have to bail out the system, we have to bail out the system. But we have a system moving forward at the end of this meeting. We're going to start the process, hopefully, if we get the 3 votes. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Well, look at that. Motion failed. 2 to 3 with Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Adams, and Commissioner Morse dissenting.
What I would ask,
Spend that
if we
money.
could reach out to Senator Mayfield's office and see if she can't intervene to either move us up on the rollout or get more vaccines or do something, because she was the one there with Governor DeSantis, and so maybe she has a little bit of his ear and can just remind him, hey, you pointed to us as one of the better ones. This is where we need help, is getting on the share care quick and get more vaccines. So maybe Debbie's office could reach out to the governor.
I just want to get to the logic again. Y'all wanted to consider a wait list. We had great discussion on it on a previous meeting. We directed to look at the wait list. The county administrator did that. There's hope and promise that the state might come forward with a plan, and we had the opportunity today to move forward with a plan and direction for a wait list for the community in which we serve, which also going to be followed up with the process of secondary vaccines with great record keeping and reducing the angst and anxiety that the public is experiencing. Well, Godspeed, we'll get the calls. Thank you.
I assume on that suggestion, we could also work with Representative Grall's office just to see whatever levers we can pull in Tallahassee.
Back to politics. Okay. Well, thank you for that. All right. Next item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion on the FIT installation of high-frequency radar, HFR, antennas at Treasure Shores Park. Good morning, Kevin.
Good afternoon.
Well, yeah, we're having so much fun.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, Kevin Kerwin, your Park and Recreation Director. I have an item for your approval today to approve an installation of a radar array at Treasure Shores Beach Park. I brought with me today, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Nick Shea first because he drove the furthest from the University of Miami Rosenthal School of Marine and Atmospheric Science. Gentlemen, please come up. And Dr. Steve Lazarus from Florida Tech. We have a very brief presentation for you today to give the background of what the system does and the benefits of the system. So without further ado, Dr. Steve Lazarus and Dr. Nick Shea.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the Commission for inviting us in to do this today. You guys have pressing matters on your agenda clearly, and Kevin Kerwin, thank you for your help as well with this, and Dr. Nick Shea for coming up. I'm an atmospheric scientist by trade. I'll just talk briefly about this with you guys. And this radar, coastal radar, is a low frequency, 13.5 megahertz radar, operates at 40 watts, and we need 2 locations, and Kevin's been helping us out with this one up here or down here, excuse me, in Indian River County, and it's beneficial to not just the stuff we do, but it's beneficial to the community as a whole. So the point of this PowerPoint slide is to show that it detects currents, ocean currents, and so it's and waves. And so it's helpful for all sorts of things for the community, including tracking red tide for folks that are concerned about red tide oil spills, even surfing information, fisheries, search and rescue. And one thing it's not on here is rocket launch support, obviously dumping boosters, and so collecting the booster engines from for launch support. Sea turtles, folks doing sea turtle research, folks that are in emergency management for coastal impacts of tropical cyclones. All these things are really beneficial to the community, and even rip currents. And there's a cartoon there showing a picture showing currents off the southeast Florida coast in some work that Dr. Shea's been doing. So NOAA is funding this project. I'm the principal investigator, real short, and so there is about 17 agencies involved, NOAA agency involved, and there's 11 regional associations, and one of them is the Southeast Coastal Ocean Observation Regional Association. The umbrella organization is the Integrated Ocean Observing System, also NOAA funded. That's called IOOS, I-O-O-S, yes, another acronym. I apologize. And the next one describes SICORA. You'll notice in the upper right-hand panel there in the figure, there's a bunch of radars along the east coast stretching from the Carolinas southward, wrapping around the west coast of Florida. But the gap there, look at the gap in east central Florida. And so we need 2 coastal radars to map the currents. This is one site here in northern Indian River County. The other one I'm working on is in Satellite Beach. And I'm talking to their commission tomorrow evening. And again, a description of the Southeast Coastal Ocean Observing Research Association. I guess I can't stress enough that this data will be made available to the community, to emergency planners, emergency management, regional planners, these folks in real time. And then the orange gap there shows the 2 radars in our region. The orange one are the planned, the green ones are operational, and the red are offline. And the 2 target areas are the Oculina Bank, which is a marine habitat offshore the east central Florida coastline. And those 2 square boxes in that right panel are just the buoys. That's all the data we have. 2 points, 2 single isolated points. The overlap, that shaded region between the 2 radars, is where we'll get the current information from the radars. Next. And finally, so what's it going to look like at Treasure Shores? We're talking about 1,000 feet of 30-foot spaced, very narrow poles. 12 of those poles, those yellow dots, are actually receive antenna. They're passive. There's no radiation coming from those. And then there's 4 transmit antenna just to the north of the lifeguard station, which we plan on renovating actually to upgrade it for placing the actual components of the radar. And again, it's very, very unobtrusive and low power, and should be a great community benefit. That's it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions?
Yes. Do you have a photograph of what it actually looks like, the pole itself?
I did not include that in this presentation. They're very skinny, 6 feet tall.
And I'm sorry, how many of them are there? Are there 12?
There's 12, 30. I had some nice pictures of that. I apologize for not having that for you. So they're 30 feet spacing, about 6 feet high, and some guy wires to hold them up, and that's about it.
What color are they? Do they blend in?
Well, we will.
Become, unsightly?
Great question. In other locations, right, Dr. Shea, we have painted these things.
We actually paint them green to blend into the vegetation. They're 1-inch diameter monopoles that are roughly 4 to 6 feet in height. And they do anchor right to the sand. The sand produces that conducting plane, so we get long transmissions and the signals come back.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you mentioned radiation. Could you just repeat that, what you said about it?
The transmitter is at 13 megahertz in the high frequency range of the electromagnetic spectrum. Basically, the amount of radiation that comes out is about 40 watts. So it's about a third or a half of what you get out of your light bulb sitting in your living room.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying then, if I understand it correctly, is that that's not a concern, radiation?
It is definitely not a concern.
Not a concern.
We've been fortunate enough in South Florida to have had our radars up for 15 years, and there's been no problems whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so just before we hear from all these folks, is there any impact to marine mammals, shorebirds, sea turtles, anything from the frequency going out?
There is no known impact. If you want to compare it to a frequency of a cell phone, a cell phone's about 10 to 100 times higher frequency than the radar's transmitting at.
Okay.
Commissioner Henry?
No, I think this is I think it's a great idea. I was up with Kevin the other day looking at the site. I was up with Kevin the other day looking at the site, and I think it's a perfect venue for it. I think it's just, I think there's no downside to this whatsoever. I think it's a great idea.
Ms. Cooney, you will get a chance once they get a chance to talk.
Any further discussion? Okay. No motion on the floor?
They need a motion?
They need it, well, I see, well, let's see, Ms. Cooney, you wish to speak?
Yes, I certainly do. I emailed a lot of information concerning the extreme harm that is being done by this electromagnetic frequency radiation, otherwise known as EMF radiation. There's the Bioinitiative report, which was done in 2012 and is updated annually, I believe. And there's also the International Scientists' Appeal, which was signed in order to limit the EMF radiation that we are all exposed to. And that was issued in 2015, and I think they do updates as well. And that was signed by over 200 scientists and doctors who specialize in the biological effects of EMF radiation. And they strongly urged us to really tamp down on this harmful radiation. Now, I'm personally very, very opposed to that location. Putting this harmful equipment in at Treasure Shores, that's a beautiful beach, which I personally use a lot. I swim there a lot, and you know, this is the tourist industry here. These are the beautiful beaches that attract people and you know, kind of keep our county flush with dollars from tourism. And we're going to destroy that one beautiful beach. I don't think we should be doing that. It's very harmful to humans. It's very harmful to wildlife. There have been thousands of studies proving that it harms not only humans, but it also harms wildlife. That would be the sea turtles, the shorebirds, the marine life, birds, bees. You know, this is very, very harmful. Now, these distinguished gentlemen here, I'm sure they know a lot about the technical aspects of the electromagnetic frequencies themselves. However, I don't think any of them have studied the biological effects. And that's why I'm citing the Bioinitiative report and the International Scientists' Appeal and the National Toxicology Program. That was funded by the US government. $25 to $30 million of our taxpayer money went into that. They found clear evidence of cancer caused by electromagnetic fields. And then they buried it under the rug. They said, oh, well, we found clear evidence, so let's just ignore it. Well, I don't think this commission should be ignoring that. I think these are the very issues that this commission needs to be considering. And now I know Mr. O'Brien stated that he doesn't read the emails at all because...
I didn't say that. I said I didn't open the attachments.
Oh, okay. I didn't send an attachment. I sent a link. Do you open links?
No.
Okay, so you can't, so you're not going to look at the Bioinitiative report at all because I sent it in a link. I think that's a very, very bad decision on your part. I think you need to, I shouldn't even have to send it. The fact that we're talking about harmful radio frequency and radiation, you should, as responsible commissioners, which I'm going to assume that you are, you should research these materials on your own. You shouldn't even depend on the public to send you the links or to send you the attachments. You should go ahead and do the research on your own. And you can go out, if you don't like my link, you can go online and you can find the Bioinitiative report. You can go on, if you're willing to actually do the work that it takes to really be a good county commissioner, you could go online, you could find the National Toxicology Program. You could go online and find all of the information. There's Dr. Joel Moskowitz at UC Berkeley, and he has a virtual clearinghouse of information of the thousands of studies that have proved that this radiation is extremely harmful, not only to humans, but also to wildlife and also to the environment. This is the most important issue on the agenda today, and I know we tried to sneak it down at the bottom of the...
No, we did not, ma'am.
But so that people...
Please, can you conclude your presentation? Thank you.
Okay, I am not being listened to, but at least I have the...
No, you are being listened to.
So anyway, this is extremely harmful. This impacts our tourist industry. This also creates liability, not only for FIT, but also for Indian River County. When this harm happens and people come back and they say, oh, this was the commission meeting where the commissioners approved to put in these harmful installations, well, that makes the county, that's us, and the commissioners themselves liable for that damage. And I think that's too expensive. What's the benefit to the county? Absolutely nothing at all. The county doesn't get any money for this installation. The county, it destroys one of our most beautiful beaches, makes it pretty much uninhabitable, not only by humans, but also by the wildlife. You know what, they say we're going to get information out of it. Well, what information that we don't already have? I mean, I don't see that we need that particular information. We've gone crazy about getting information that we don't even need. And at what expense? At harming our health, at harming our beautiful natural environment, at harming our tourist industry. So we are talking about money that comes into this county from tourism, and that is a huge industry in this county. We have beautiful beaches, we have beautiful parks. It attracts people. So we need, if we're only making a financial decision, we're getting no benefit from this, no financial benefit whatsoever, and yet we're impacting our tourist industry. So financially, it makes no sense at all either. So I would really strongly encourage the board to consider these things. I know they don't want to, but it really would be in the public interest for you to consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Coney.
Mr. Chair?
Now, gentlemen, it's my understanding that this information is going to be shared with the Fish and Wildlife and the Sea Turtle Monitoring Program?
This is correct.
And I just want you to know what type of understanding we have with them as well. These are two foundations that are bastions of our wildlife and protection.
Yes, so as the lead PI on this project, I will be working with folks to share everything we collect from this site. It should be a lot of useful information, as I showed you in the little collage, definitely, most definitely. I can vouch for that personally.
And you already have an understanding that this information will be shared with them? This has already been
It's
openly
very
discussed
clear.
and agreed upon?
Yes, sir. Yep, very clear, yes.
So
And it's part of why I got involved in the first place. It's not an isolated research project. This is something to help the community. I already do outreach. I'm actually a volunteer in Brevard County for the Sea Turtle Preservation Society for 20 years now in my free time. So these are good things to do. Sharing of data information to help you guys make better decisions. It's a nice nexus of science and community support, right?
So if there was any perception of danger to the wildlife, they would most certainly object to engaging in any portion of this activity or endeavor.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You can walk in front of this radar. It's completely safe.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to go ahead and move staff's recommendation. We have had a great partnership with FIT and projects in the past, and I trust that this will be as advantageous for all.
Second. Any further discussion? Upon motion by Commissioner Adams, seconded by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is utility services, and item 12H1, which is 51st Avenue Water Assessment Projects, Resolution 1 and 2.
Hi, good afternoon. For the record,
Good
Vincent
afternoon.
Burke, Director of Utility Services. We just have 4 quick slideshows for the board to go over how we got here. On October 20th of last year, the board authorized staff to proceed with the petition and surveying and engineering design and to move forward with resolutions 1 and 2, which are presented today. You recall that there's 31 benefiting parcels in this assessment area. 24 of the 31 parcels are in favor, 77.4%. We estimate that the total construction cost is about $291,400, which divided amongst the folks comes to about $9,400. You'll see the assessment area, it's almost to the north and to the south. There's a weird area where there's an existing water main that provides water services through the dashed black and white lines that are on to the east and in the center part of this area. But in the center part of your screen, you'll see that there's a north section and a south section. We are not including those folks that are already connected to the county water. And I do want to state that while normally the benefiting properties, while there may be a little bit of a utility cost involvement to loop the service, where the service currently terminates just to the east, as shown on the top right-hand portion of the project. So today we are asking the board to adopt Resolution 1, providing for the installation of the water main along 51st Avenue, as shown with the benefiting properties. The board shall establish the applicable interest rate at the time the final assessment is approved, usually in Resolution 4. Adopt Resolution 2, setting the time and place for the public hearing, which is tentatively set for Tuesday, March 9th, in these chambers beginning at 9:05. If the board directs staff to move forward, we will do one of two things. We will properly notice in a newspaper that this is coming back for a public hearing, and we have letters that will be sent out to each and every property owner so that they have an opportunity to know about the public hearing and to come before the board to either speak for or against the project on Tuesday, March 9th. Certainly available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Are there any questions of Mr. Burke regarding this action?
Move staff recommendation for Resolution 1 and Resolution 2.
And that's upon motion by Commissioner O'Brien for both, and seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any further discussion? Vinnie, thank you for the presentation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item in Solid Waste Disposal District is the approval of minutes for October 13th, 2020.
So moved.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. And the final item on the agenda is the work order number 4 to Anderson Andre Consulting Engineers Incorporated.
Move staff recommendation.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Ehrman. Any discussion? Thank you for the presentation, Vinnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Seeing no further on the agenda to conduct business, this meeting is adjourned.